Are we good? Okay. We'll call the meeting of the Brainerd ISD 181 Board of Education to order, and we'll start with roll call.
Kevin Boyle.
Here.
Michelle Brennan.
Here.
DJ Dunlayer.
Here.
Randy Heidman.
Here.
Gareth Beer.
Here.
John Ward.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. And let's go to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we have an amended agenda tonight. We have three things amended. One is an attachment in Marcy's presentation on the long-term facilities thing later on in the presentation. And then board, under the list of policies under the consent agenda, we pulled two out. We pulled out 524, which is the internet acceptable use and safety policy, and 601, the curriculum and instruction goals at the requests of Directors Don Delinger and Heidemann, respectively. They want to take a deeper look at those, so we didn't want to rubber stamp those tonight. So those are the only changes to the agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Director Heidemann.
one other, I guess it's more of a question to Heidi. I was going through the newsletter that we got from MSBA on policies that were changed because of legislation. And we did not have on this list critical.
Yep, so there's 4 policies that aren't on that list that were on the MSBA list, and we moved those to August. Some of
Okay.
which because it's a brand-new policy that needs to be adopted, and they're all going to require more than one reading.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that's why.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Director Ward.
also, prior to the last meeting, I had asked that we have a director comment at the end of each meeting on the agenda, and I don't see it on the agenda, but we had it last time under committee reports. Not all, but my request was to have each director have an ability to make comments at the end of the meeting. Remember that,
Yes.
Superintendent? And so I don't see that on there, so I'd like to have that added.
For tonight?
Yes. Yeah, for tonight. And I wanted it as an ongoing, I didn't want it just last month, I wanted it as an ongoing, I thought I made that pretty clear, ongoing kind of agenda item. And the other thing is, on the consent calendar, I want to pull, I was going to wait until we get the consent calendar. You want me
Yeah,
to wait
we
till
can get to that when we get to that section.
Very good.
That's good.
Thank you.
On the comment thing, my understanding was that when we discussed that at the board level, that we were going to talk about it as an action item, as potentially a standing agenda item, but in my mind, that was a board action thing that we would decide on, not something that I would just arbitrarily add to the agenda, but maybe I didn't understand you when we were speaking about it. So if you want to move on it, we could.
Yeah, I'll move on.
Okay. Do we have a second? So would you formally move so people know what you're
Yeah,
asking
we'll
for?
move that, to add it to the agenda. We have each director have the opportunity to make comment at the end of the meeting, give feedback, whatever they want. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Ward to add a section at the end of tonight's meeting and ongoing meetings at the end of the session during like the updates for each director to give a comment, seconded by Director Heidemann. Did I say that correctly, Director Ward?
Yes?
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Is that in addition to the committee meeting updates?
Yes.
What are the comments for?
Excuse me?
What's the purpose? Like, what do we talk about?
If you don't have a committee report, then you aren't able to give any comments. You don't have to
Oh,
have
so
a
you
comment.
could say something
It's
if
just-
you want.
No, right. We did that on a previous board that I sat on, and it worked well. And I think that each meeting we should have an opportunity to give some input or ask some questions or whatever when, at the end of the meeting.
You know me, I like to talk. I'll find something to say.
You don't have to tell me that, I know that.
Well, as the silent one of the group.
I'm not opposed to it. I just like to have some procedure around it, like objectives for it outside of the, because we're taking time also to do the board working sessions for the retreats. And so understanding the difference between that time and this time and the committee time. So just being really clear on what those are. I don't know that I would be in favor of it tonight as it stands what it is without putting some parameters around it.
Superintendent, do you remember when I made that
Yes, I
request?
do.
Am I clear on the request that I made?
Yes, and then what was added was the committee reports, knowing that each board member participates in a committee monthly.
Right, and
But then they could
last
report
month we
by-
had every committee report, so everybody had an opportunity. This month we don't.
Correct.
So that's exactly why I'm asking that. So I understand that, Director Spear, what you're saying.
Director, or Chairman? I
Dr.
would say, I would like to give you a little bit of latitude in that if someone goes off the deep end, that you could possibly ask them to end their comments. I'm hoping it's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but I understand where Vice Chair Spear is coming from as well. And I don't think that's going to happen. It's just to give people the ability, if they want to say something about something, they can. They don't have to, they're not required to. So I would add to that, you have the option to say, okay, enough, if you so choose to.
You got the gavel.
I do indeed. I'm
You did
Thor.
just whack that.
I have a hand.
So I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion or comments? For my part, I'll vote against it. I think there are ample opportunities when there are agenda items that are specific where we can address those. To have an à la carte one at the end for me is sort of a license for somebody like me who really likes to pontificate. Who's going to gavel me down, Director Heidman?
I would limit it to 3 minutes.
Okay, so there's a
No different
thought.
than the public comment. It might be less, but I wouldn't let it go more. And I would like to call a roll call on this, if I may. Vote?
Absolutely. Any further discussion on the motion? That said, as requested, roll call vote, please.
Michelle Brecken,
No.
TJ Dunlinger,
Yes.
Randy Heidman,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
No.
John Ward,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
No.
335.
Motion fails. Now, with that said, I think as we get a better handle on how we handle board retreats and work sessions and we continue to refine that process, I think it's really important that we have dialogue. I think in as much as we've tried to balance this being a business meeting with some of the other things, I think that was my rationale behind it. But thank you for bringing that up, Director Ward.
Yep.
That will move us along. Oh, sorry, I'm still waiting for the Director Ward chimed in. I had a motion from Director Spear to approve the amended agenda, and then somebody else like shotgunned right after. No?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion from Director Spear and a second from Director Heidman to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Move along to public comment. So just my little preamble that I always get to read before public comment. A member of the public can address the board during this time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Complaints or allegations against students or employees may not be discussed due to data privacy. Complaints or allegations must be submitted in writing to Superintendent Hahn. The Board of Education superintendent will not converse with guests to address the topics discussed at this time. Given the number of public comments, I have 20 cards in front of me tonight, folks, and we have this district business. I am going to be ultra strict on the 3 minutes tonight. So the hammer is going to drop at 3 minutes, so it ain't personal. Don't care what you're up here to talk about. 3 minutes is 3 minutes, and if it's going to be fair, everybody only gets 3. So with that said, we will start it off with Sally Booz, please.
Hi. Okay, I am Sally Boos, and I taught in the Brainerd District for 34 years. Oh, sorry. This better?
I don't think it's working.
Yeah, I don't.
No.
I don't think it's on.
I don't think it's on with us either.
I'm on.
Now is it working?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Level down, pull it closer to you, Sally.
Sure. Okay, I'll use my teacher voice. I taught in the district for 34 years. My entire career was spent in this district. My 2 adult children graduate from BHS and have very good careers. One is a gifted and talented teacher in the metro area. The other is an executive for an international firm in New York City. I'm here to encourage you to not allow a small group of extremists tarnish the legacy and the reputation of the Brainerd Public Schools. You have policies in place. I ask you to support those policies and your staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Misty Job?
Good evening. I also have a teacher voice, so I will use it as well as this microphone, which is not great. My name is Misty Job, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the board today. I am the proud mother of 2 Warrior alumni who both received an excellent education in Brainerd Public Schools. I've also been an educator in our district for 19 years, 18 of them teaching 8th grade English, first at Franklin Junior High, then Forest View Middle School. Like many, I was alarmed at the excerpts from the books that were read aloud at the last board meeting. Over the course of my career, I've had roughly 3,000 13 and 14-year-old students in my classroom, including the children of some of our board members today. Many of those kids have been lucky to grow up in loving, stable, engaged families, but this is not true for all of them. I've had students who have experienced every kind of abuse you can possibly imagine. I've had students who struggle with drug and alcohol abuse. I've had students who have been trafficked. I've had students who have experienced extreme neglect, pregnancy scares, poverty, and questions about gender identity and sexuality. And yes, I've had students who are already sexually active in middle school. A part of my job that I take very, very seriously is connecting kids with books that can help them make sense of the world in which they live. Adolescence is a very, very lonely place to be, and books that reflect the same challenges and issues that they face can simply help them feel less alone in a world that is confusing, judgmental, and often unforgiving. All of our students deserve to find themselves in the books that they read. And for many of our most vulnerable students, school is the only access to books that they have. I urge you to trust in the process that was established years ago regarding access to books with mature content in our school libraries. While it is easy to cherry pick the most shocking passages for reading aloud at board meetings, it is also incredibly lazy when you consider the depth of thematic content that exists in young adult literature today. I believe it is naive to think that sexual content in books would be particularly shocking to most 7th and 8th grade students. Any kid with a phone, a password to a Netflix account, or a computer has already been exposed to visual sexual imagery that make the passages that were read aloud seem tame. Technology has changed the information that kids can access at younger and younger ages. And what they read in school library books with parent permission should be the least of our concerns when we consider the myriad of complex issues facing our students in schools today. I'm also always perplexed why so many people default to outrage over kids having access to sexual content while ignoring the significant impact that violent imagery has on our culture. I've yet to see anyone express concern about the violence in a book, leading me to wonder why violence is okay, but sex, which for most people becomes a normal, healthy part of adult relationships, is not. Also, it is disingenuous to express concern for student access to sexual content, then make the decision to read aloud that same content at a public meeting, which will now be accessible online to all children in our district and beyond without parent permission in perpetuity. This issue could easily have been addressed in a thoughtful, mature way that didn't lead to that outcome. Thank you.
Doug Kern.
Yeah. I've heard it said and heard it written in the dispatch that this removing pornographic books are about me and Sue. Absolutely not. This is not about me and Sue. This is about protecting the children. And that's not my job. That's you guys' job to protect the children. Administrators and teachers and you are there to protect our little ones. I've been teaching children for about 38 years. I'm an educator too. In community forums that were held in public input on how to stop what I would call hemorrhaging of students from the district, you know, this is one of the reasons is when you have things like this, where parents are looking at what's in the school, they want to yank their kids out. They want a homeschool, they want a private school, they want to do anything. That was one of the things that was brought out during that public time, the public forums that they had, because I know I wrote about it. I wrote on put the little sticky pads up. The main way to protect children is not by stealing their innocence, but it's enforcing the statutes. I believe the community deserves to know who put these books in the school and why. Like Sally Booth said, I agree with Sally, enforce the statutes. You have state statutes, you have statutes that are MSBA and statutes you guys all approved to protect the children from this. You have statutes, I agree with Sally, enforce the statutes. These policies that are in place, they're state and MSBA and local, so protect the kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Michael Erickson. It doesn't start till you start talking. But since you said that, I started it.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Michael Erickson. I'm a retired school psychologist. I graduated from Brainerd in 1974. I just got an email that said my 50th reunion's coming up. I can't believe that because I'm not that old. Yeah. Like I said, I was a school psychologist for, worked out to be 41 years. So of those 40 plus years, I've seen a lot of change in public education, some of it good, some of it bad. One of my main concerns is safety of children. So I agree with everyone when they say their concerns is for children's safety, okay? But I guess I view it from a little bit different perspective. I have a tattoo that says, your story isn't over yet. And it has a semicolon. For writers in the room, semicolon means you can end a sentence or you can continue the sentence, okay? So many of our kids think about killing themselves, okay? They have a choice of putting a period there or continuing their stories. Many of these children have been abused. Many of these children are transgender. Many of these children are gay, lesbian, whatever. They're the kids that are on the fringe. If there's a book in the library that helps them feel comfortable, that helps someone accept them, then I think it belongs there. I think it does a real disservice to them, their families, if you choose to ban that book. Thank you.
Lowell Smith.
Hi, and good evening. Before I start, I want to pose a couple of internal questions that I would like you to think about and answer. Do you believe it is okay internally to expose our children to sexually explicit material? And what, more importantly, is the value add of exposing children to sexually explicit material when our job, or your job, and the teacher's job is to educate and increase our scores in reading, understanding the English language, mathematics? How does sexually explicit material value add to that? No one here, or well, I should say, I can only speak for myself. I am not saying ban books. Banning books is a gaslighting term that people will use to try to throw shade at the other side. Publish what you want, write what you want, read what you want at your own house. But you have to think, again, what is the value that you add to the educational system by the books that we have accessible to students? The National Institute of Health has multiple studies out there that show that young children exposed to sexually explicit content develop sexually aggressive behaviors, develop sexual addictions, develop more and more sexual problems. And are you adding to that problem of sexual violence? Or are you helping to protect the children and society as a whole by keeping the children not exposed to that?
All right, so we're going to hold the applause for the rest of the meeting, or I'm going to take us into recess. We're trying to get through 20 public comment cards. I know we have strong opinions on both sides or all sides of this issue. Rest assured, there's lots of people here that agree with you. Thank you for your adherence.
Do I get to keep my minutes
Yeah,
back?
absolutely. I'll gift you back whatever I
you.
just did, 30 seconds.
And when we're talking about the material that was posed, I just want to say that the material that was written in the textbooks, and since we do have young children here, I'm not going to repeat it, but the letter to the editor that was actually written by Dottie Smith, no kin to me in any shape, form, or fashion, the Brainerd Dispatch found the language so abhorrent that they changed the letter to the editor. So if that letter to the editor using the terms used in the textbook was so bad that they changed it from adult consumption, why are we as a school district allowing our children access to it? Using the excuse that you have to have a parental permission slip signed before you check it out. Really? I know how this works, and I'm old. My mother or somebody else's mother is going to sign the permission slip. I'm going to check the book out, and that book's going to be passed around more than a joint at a Doobie Brothers concert. That's high school. That's junior high. So what I urge you to do, and I ask that the administration and the school board members not display cowardice and appalling lack of leadership by appeasing anti-intellectual groups that say that we're trying to stifle free speech or ban books, but do the right thing and protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Lowell. Again, I'm not going to say it again. Not going to say it again. I will clear the room. This is a school board meeting, not a rally. Next up is Elsie Hewsome. Hope I said that correctly.
One quick comment first on the last. We are not speaking about textbooks, and let's be perfectly clear on that. Now, I commend you school board members for your respectful and time-consuming attention to this issue. I think I speak for many, many District 181 citizens when I say I know you are not trying to subvert the morals of our students in the district. We know that you do not deserve the accusations, the blame, the threats even made at that June meeting. As a former library media specialist and director of media technology in this district, I know there are several ways that this issue could have been settled very simply on a building level with everybody's satisfaction, or should be, without making it a public spectacle. Yet here we are. The irony of the situation is that I think most Forest View students would never have seen these books. However, now that it is so public, their interest has been piqued. Aha! Now they want to see them. And they don't have to go to the library to check it out. All they have to do is go on the internet, click into YouTube, and have read to them the very parts that the concerned citizens are supposedly trying to protect them from. Perhaps this issue needed a little more thought and a little more common sense. Thank you.
Next, we have Bruce Smith.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Smith. I taught a health class to sophomores at Brainerd High School for 30 years. I coached and I taught a church youth group. I'm here to talk to you about the sexually explicit books in the Forest View Middle School Library. My three most difficult units to teach in high school were the sexually transmitted diseases, teenage pregnancy, and mental health unit. And we had an epidemic of suicides during that 80s time, so it was very difficult. According to UNICEF and many other sources, children exposed to pornography at a young age may and do often lead to poor mental health, sexism, sexual violence, and abusive relationships. The sad part of this is they may come to view these things and these behaviors as normal and acceptable. They're not. I find it horrific that you, our school board and administration, allow this pornography at Forest View. Shame on you and shame on us for allowing this to happen in our middle school. I cannot imagine how anyone with a child's well-being in mind could ever find one thing of value in having this kind of a book available to our 10 to 14-year-olds. There would be a downside. Would there be a downside if these books were removed? Who would know? What harm would it be? We talk a lot about the physical and mental health challenging our children today. We hire counselors, teachers, teach classes on it. We bring in professional speakers to promote better mental health, physical health for our children, and then we allow this kind of crap in our library. Could you please explain to the parents of District 181 with these middle school students how sexually explicit books improve their child's mental or physical health, especially as we're seeing again now in the rise of suicides, STDs, teen pregnancies as young as 12-year-olds. This topic is on your agenda, and we hope by coming here and making our concerns known to you that they are the concerns of the community as well. And we are not thinking the only people who will look at these books. We have some in the elementary schools. So I hope we look at all of this kind of curriculum that's getting into, not curriculum, sorry, books that are getting into our school. So thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Amy Gundlach.
There's two of us, so I get 6 minutes, right? That's how this works? Just kidding.
I'll give the baby as long as
he gives me, right? Okay. My name is Amy Gunlock, and my husband and I have called the Brainerd Lakes area home for the last 10 years. I'm beginning my 8th school year with ISD 181 as an early childhood speech language pathologist. I work with the youngest warriors, children ages birth to 5 and their families. Tonight, I am not only here as an employee, but more importantly, as a parent of 3 current and 1 future warrior. I am here to express concern regarding the effort by community members to ban books in our school libraries. I attended the meeting in June, and while it was wonderful to see people engaged in school issues, it was disheartening that those who expressed concern about the content of books then chose to get up and leave the meeting immediately following public comment, ignoring the pressing issues that were to be addressed in the real business of the school board meeting. Our district deserves to have people engaged in real advocacy for the actual pressing issues that are currently impacting our district that those of us who work in the district and or have children attending schools in the district witness on a regular basis. Issues such as improved literacy outcomes, retention of high-quality staff, increased inclusion opportunities for students with disabilities, mental and emotional health for students and employees, and overall budgets and policies that meet the needs of all learners. My understanding is that the books with mature content at the middle school level are only available to 7th and 8th grade students with parent permission. While I understand and agree that parents have a right to determine what is appropriate for their own children, I also have that right, and I am not interested in other people determining what books my children are allowed to read. Let's trust the process that is already in place and not become distracted from the real issues. Let's use our time and energy to work toward improving our district in the ways that will have the most positive impact on kids. Thank you to the board for all that you do to move our district forward for the betterment of kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jessica, I'm going to say it wrong, Malady? Malady.
Irish,
So it's
not
like British.
Not like disease or
No,
illness.
like, yeah. You notice that's the only one I didn't use.
I appreciate your tact. I'm very nervous. So my name is Jessica Malady. I have students going into second and fourth grade at Baxter Elementary this year. You may have seen my daughter coming home with a kiwi pack, ripping at the seams, and an additional pile of books in her other hand. I'm a former high school teacher, 7 years in St. Paul Public Schools. I frankly believe this topic is a complete waste of your time. There is already a process in place to keep mature books out of kids' hands. Second, honestly, if our true motivation here was caring about our children, then we would be focusing on the approximately 50% of our kids in this district that are not proficient in reading. They can't read the mature books. That said, I have to be here so that it is clear that the newest fleeting activism trend of banning books is not the opinion held by the larger community. Students have the internet at their fingertips, and we literally cannot censor that information they come across. In fact, I think that is indeed the issue here, because the people in our society are constantly bombarded with information. Our job as educators, parents, is to teach critical thinking. How can I wade through this information and ask tough questions and decide on my own where to land? How can I find all the important information about this? Our job is to help children make good choices with information, not carefully curate the information they are exposed to. Their education should not be a filtered Facebook news feed that only provides them information that further stokes their siloed opinion. Both of my children are skilled readers. I believe very strongly they should be able to choose books that interest and inspire them. Also, as a working mom, it can be challenging to get to the public library for wide swaths of time, so my kids rely solely on the books that the schools can provide to them. I hope that the schools continue to provide a wide variety of books for my kids to expand their worldview, to inspire their interest. If the only risk they take in middle school is choosing a controversial book, then consider me delighted. Also, if the only time my child hears about sex is in a fictional book, I am doing my job wrong as a parent. Please give our kids all the books and the skills to read them. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Yeager.
My name is Shirley Yeager. I worked in the Media Center at Franklin Junior High for just under 10 years. A content rating system for movie and television is widely accepted, and yet none exists for books. There is some help available online from sites like Common Sense Media and Booklooks. Neither are interested in banning books. They are informational. For example, a book read to you at last month's meeting, The Kite Runner, is listed on both sites. One gives it 5 of 5 rating for educational value, but also for violence, scariness, and language. Although they consider it educational, it is not recommended for children under 16. The other site gives a similar rating of 4 of 5, saying no minors under 18. Neither recommends it for middle school students. I want to read you parts of a report put out by the American College of Pediatricians in June of 2016 titled The Impact of Pornography on Children. When young children are exposed to pornography, it often results in anxiety and depression. Children report feelings of disgust, shock, embarrassment, anger, fear, and sadness afterwards. They may become obsessed with acting out adult sexual acts. In summary, it says, because of its harmfulness to children, pornography must never be used as a tool to teach children. I was going to read 2 excerpts from additional books from the library tonight, but because there are small children in this room, I am not going to do that, because I don't think they should be hearing this at all. And the 2 that I was going to read both had sections in there that required the one partner to draw blood on the other person. And I think these books are attempting to normalize what I would call rough sex, possibly abusive sex. I personally do not believe children should think drawing blood on your partner is a normal part of sexual intercourse. The author of these two books, Sarah J. Maas, has at least 11 different titles in the Forest View Library, all with the same type of content. If professionals clearly know that this type of literature is damaging to children, and you yourselves have made policy against it, why are there so many of these books in the school library?
Thank you. Rick Felt.
I had every intention of reading this tonight, but in view of those two little kids up there, I was going to finish up my comments on the importance of protecting innocence. That first one that you're looking at right there talks about an incestuous relationship, and if Sheriff Klain could let me know if I'm wrong, but incestuous relationships are against the law. And if you want to teach your kids about incestuous relationships in your own house, you do it. But do not let that be available in the public school system. When I was in Germany, I visited Dachau concentration camp. Even 40 years after that was over, when I walked into the gas chamber, you could still smell the death in that room. You could still sense the evil. And what I did not realize was that even 45 years after I visited that camp, I can close my eyes and I can still see those pictures of the horror of what I witnessed at that camp. But what I didn't realize is that I did a lot of research, and what they found was, how could those men do such a horrendous thing? What they found, and has been scientifically proven, that because of the desensitization of viewing it every single day, it only took 2 to 3 weeks before they viewed it as a normal 8-to-5 job. And that's all documented by science. I absolutely believe that our children are being desensitized at an enormous rate. All of their little games and everything that they play on their phones, they're shooting everything, and they have no idea that when they pull the trigger on a real gun, what's really going to happen. I believe that it also desensitizes them to the sexual content, and we have 400 to 800,000 people sex trafficked in the United States nowadays. The movie that just came out on the 4th of July talks about that whole issue. And will keep, and you guys have been talking about bringing the students back that have already been pulled out. Is this going to, by keeping these books in, is that going to restore the trust in the parents that pull their kids out? Does it build up a moral character? All throughout Germany, there was warning signs over and over and over for people to stand up and say enough is enough. But the moral people, nobody stood up, and over 6 million people were exterminated. We have a moral obligation and a constitutional right to protect the innocence of our children. You are not the parents, you are the guardians, and a guardian protects the innocent. That is the #1 reason why people will pull their children out of school.
Thank you, Rick. Pete Monzi, hope I'm saying that one right too.
Hi, my name's Pete Morsch. I've got a upcoming 3rd grader and upcoming 1st grader. But sorry, I got a 3rd grader and a 1st grader, and we'll take them out so everybody can say whatever they want to say in front of everybody. That's fine. I didn't mean for them to be a distraction, but I do know that they're voracious readers, and in our little town of Nisswa, I I just think that books are there to open the door to the world, and I don't want to close those doors to these kids. There's too much for them to see. So I think it's absolutely the responsibility of us as parents, as educators, to help guide our students and explain things every night. The best thing about hanging out with my girls is reading, and if there's something they don't understand or can't wrap their little heads around, the most beautiful thing is seeing them start to understand that and conversing with them. And so, like I say, I think any opportunity we have to open our doors rather than close them down is a good opportunity, and let's take it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Pete. Teresa Famoso.
Hi, good evening. I had something a little different prepared to say tonight, but just kind of hearing the content, pivoting a little bit. Mostly, I guess I want to say that I agree with a lot of what Jessica shared already. I am a mom of 2 students in ISD 181, and I really appreciate the current system that is set up, especially at Forest View Middle School with the books. And the checkout system there. I have had to sign a permission slip to allow my daughter to check out more mature content. It has been a struggle to get her to her reading level and get her interested in reading. So the fact that she found a book that she was interested in reading elated me. My son was a little bit different when he was in 2nd and 3rd grade. He was reading at a 9th and 10th grade reading level, and so I had to take a much more active approach to make sure I was very involved and knowing the content of what he was reading. It's very hard to find appropriate reading material for a 2nd and 3rd grader when they're reading at a 9th and 10th grade level. So that was my responsibility as a parent, to make sure that I found something that met his maturity and age level. So I just want to say I appreciate you being here, listening to all of this, and I think the current system at the middle school is very effective. So thank you.
Thank you. John Sylvester.
Good evening. I'm Major John Sylvester, U.S. Army retired. And I'm here because I care. I care deeply about our students, being that I'm a father, a grandfather, an uncle, and a neighbor, and a member of this community. You say these books are considered mature reading. Why does mature reading have to equate to pornography? What is the value of having these books filled with sexually explicit content in the children's libraries? What is the upside of this? It's bad enough these young children are allowed to read about explicit sexual intercourse, let alone describing the texture of the skin and other body parts before and after penetration. The state statute was provided to you and is clear: providing sexually explicit content to children is against the law. It is illegal to show this material to children for a reason. It's wrong and it's harmful. If there are parents who wish to expose their children to this type of material, let them, but not at the expense of taxpayers. Not in our schools, not in 181. We all support age restrictions for driving a car, voting, or buying alcohol. Why? Because children are not yet mature enough to handle the burdens and responsibilities required. That's why. But suddenly, sexual exploitation is suitable for young children. Are you out of your minds? Why don't we put in cigarette vending machines and a beer keg? If you need additional data, put a referendum question on the next election ballot. It could state something like this: vote yes if you approve your tax dollars being used to purchase sexually explicit books to be provided to ISD 181 students in school libraries. Do you think for a nanosecond this would pass? Wouldn't it make sense to tell the public that Brainerd School District has been made safe for your child to attend here, and parents wouldn't need to worry about their children being exposed to sexual content being found in the school libraries and curriculum? As Chairman Boyles has indicated, the district has been hemorrhaging enrollment decreases for many years. Aren't we all interested in increasing that enrollment? Let's be first school district to announce that we have taken action to remove unnecessary sexual content from the district. Now that would be something the parents could get behind and make efforts to enroll their child in Brainerd School District. I have to ask, on which side of the fence will you land, as the fence isn't going to work? Voting present is the same as voting against the kids and their parents, if that's your plan. Who will protect, and who are you protecting, the kids and parents or those that want to take advantage of them? The choice is yours. Be prepared to live with your choices, as many are watching and wondering your next move.
Next up is Barb McColgan. Probably have that right? Do I, Barb? Is that right? Okay.
My name is Barb McColgan, as you said. I've been a Brainerd resident for 47 years, and I have 2 sons who graduated from Brainerd High School. And just because I am bold enough to get up here and speak, or many of us are, does not make us experts. And I think, as someone said earlier, I'm not sure why this should be happening. There is a system in place. If individuals had problems with these books, why did they not just bring it to the library people, to the principal here at Forest View, and that would take care of it? And I can't help but ask the question, because for all the years I've been here, this has never been an issue, but suddenly it's a rabble-rouser. Someone referred to book banning as being gaslighting. Well, I think pornography is used extensively in this group too. And so if it can just be dealt with simply, why is it that it's being this big issue? If we think that 13 and 14-year-olds don't think about sex, well, I think we're wrong. But it, in my mind, is not the right avenue to choose, to have a few loud parents or loud community individuals make the decisions for all the other parents. I think if there's a criteria in a system, then that should be visible. Everyone could see what that criteria is. And I do know, having spoken to the people who were involved in the move when they came here to Forest View, they went through all the books, and there were many, and like they're human, and they have said sometimes one comes up and someone complains, then we deal with it. So it seems to me this has been blown way out of proportion. I do have to comment on the man who's talked about being at Dachau, because I was in Munich 3 years ago, and I went to Dachau, and I went to the museum there. And you know what I saw at Dachau? I saw people who were gay were put in a concentration camp. People who were different were put in a concentration camp. Anything we don't talk about, they put them in the concentration camp. And you know what their slogan was? Make Germany great again. And I am not lying, that is what the tour guide told us was the slogan. So I just think that you can see it from either side. When I went to the museums in Dachau, what I saw was book bannings were part of that process that just got worse and worse and worse. And you accepted it a little bit, and nobody wanted to, okay, I don't want to say too much, I won't worry about it. And it went on and it went on. And so I can't help but find it fascinating that what the gentleman's perspective from Dachau was as compared to what I saw there. So I do not think books need to be banned. I think there is a process. If that process needs to be amended, fair enough, so that it's transparent, people know what happens. If a parent or an individual has a concern, they should take it to the proper authorities. And I would wonder how many people in this room have actually read these books, other than little paragraphs. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Dottie Smith.
My name is Dottie Smith. I was born and raised here in Brainerd. For 28 years, I was privileged to drive a school bus. While that might strike terror in the heart of many, I thoroughly enjoyed the task, along with all the challenges that it presented. I used to tell the teachers that they can't do their job until I do mine, which was to deliver the children to school safely. I also taught senior high students for a number of years, however, it was not in a public setting. I'm here tonight for the sake of the students. I'm embarrassed and appalled that I have to be here and do what I'm doing before the community and the school board. I'm going to read an excerpt from a couple books. The first one is Damsel by Elena Arnold on page 107. This book was purchased by the middle school, Forest View Middle School in 2019. But when Emery tugged up at the hem of Amon's shift, bouncing the fabric at her waist and running his hand first across the dowy nest of hair between her legs, and then pushing his fingers inside of her, opening her in a way she had not known she could be opened. Sorrow glowed once more. Emery's hand froze, fingers knuckle deep in a maw, and then slowly he withdrew it, leaving her bruised and undone. The second one is from a book called Tilt, Ellen Hopkins, page 401. He pulled me into his lap, licks down my neck to the curve of my shirt. Take it off, he says, and as if he has hypnotized me, I do exactly as I'm told. That's right, my pretty little girl. He moves to kiss my nipples, and though I want to say no, I can't. It feels good, great, amazing. Beneath my skirt, I feel him grow hard against the thin barrier of my panties. I like how that feels too, but I'm still not ready. Stop. He says, why? All innocent. Then he says, we can do something else here. He lifts me up, undoes his zipper. When he frees his erection and shows me exactly how to use my mouth to get him off, I wish I could say that I don't like it, but somehow I do. Getting off is easy. You don't even need two to make it happen. The proper grip with a slippery fist, whoopee, there it goes. But man does not live by ejaculation alone. There's a whole pursuit.
Thank you, Dottie. Marty Halverson. Guess I should have touched that. I reset it to 13 minutes, and I know Marty would use it.
My name is Marty Halverson, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak today. We're very fortunate in Brainerd School District 181. We have professional and seasoned teachers, an administration with an exceptional track record, and an elected school board which takes its tasks seriously and does its work thoroughly. One example of this is the staff's foresight in its attention paid to library materials. Recently, a minority in our community have objected to the inclusion of certain books in the library because they do not fit with their individual philosophies. A policy was in place where the books are included in the library and the parents have the right to limit their students' access to certain materials. Isn't this a win-win? The very precious right of free speech is maintained, while parents who find certain materials objectionable can limit their students' access. However, this cohort of the community seeks to go further. They not only want to protect their children from certain books, but they want to limit all students' access to the material. When we have tenured faculty who sensitively select material for our students' education, how is it that some want to limit all students' access to quality materials? Albert Einstein's educational philosophy is as follows: ideas and solutions come not only from logical, systematic thinking, but also through imaginative and out-of-the-box thinking. He believed in innovation, creativity, and his vision of the world where learning is all about chasing one's curiosity, asking questions, thinking out of the box, and experimenting rather than mugging up facts. If education is all about discovering new facts to influence our futures, why would we ever want to stop free speech, limit reading materials, or tell our students they can't explore new ideas? What in the world are we afraid of?
Thank you, Marty. Nick Hillman.
Good evening. My name is Nick Hillman, a concerned citizen and a father, a taxpayer of this district. For clarification purposes, I want to make certain you're all aware that there are many, and I mean many more books in the school district's libraries that contain sexually explicit content, way beyond just the 2 which were mentioned last month and the few that were mentioned today. Based on how the Brainerd Dispatch reported the last meeting, it is entirely possible that people who spoke at the public forum perhaps weren't specific enough. However, on another note, following the last meeting, the Dispatch reported that Mr. Murtha stated the 2 books brought up are both on the mature readers list in the Forest View Library, meaning they're only available to 7th and 8th grade students who have signed the permission slip from parents. First off, where does the school have the right to even have a mature reader section with this kind of content in any school, K through 12, let alone a middle school? So is the public supposed to believe students in the library are monitored so closely by the district staff, there's no way at all the student without parental permission can't take one of the books off the shelf filled with explicit content, read it while they're in the library? Also, are we supposed to believe there's no way at all that a child that does receive parental permission won't share one of these sex-filled books with another child who doesn't have their parents' permission? Also, is the public supposed to believe there's no way at all that the child won't take pictures of the sexually explicit content and share it with other children that don't have permission? I have a few questions. Does the Director of Teaching and Learning approve this type of material for 7th and 8th graders? And a broader question is, who specifically has the authority to seek out, purchase, and approve this type of sexually explicit material for the students? And for what reason? I also have a reminder for this board and ISD 181 as a whole. You are not above the law, and supplying this type of pornographic material to our kids is vile, evil, unethical, immoral, unsuitable, and most of all, criminal. You are perverting the minds of our little ones. The state does not own our kids. They are the parents' kids. The Bible says in Matthew 18:6, "But who shall offend one of these little ones which believeth in me? It were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and that he was drowned in the depth of the sea." Crimes against kids are an unthinkable act in the Bible. And what more is under attack today in America than our kids and their young, innocent minds being indoctrinated by our public schools? Another thing to take note, one day, all of you will have to bow your knee to God, whether you believe in him or not, and you'll be judged for what you've done and what you don't do.
Thanks, Nick. Sandy Gunlack. Is it Gunlack or Gun? Yeah, it looks like Gunlack. Sandy? Sorry if I butchered that one, too.
Well, my name is Sandy Gunlock, as you mentioned. I've lived in the Baxter community for 2 months. That little boy in the corner there is one of my grandchildren. And so I'm glad to be here and be a part of his and his siblings' educations as a concerned grandparent. I'd like to thank you for adopting a policy and procedures allowing for public participation at school board meetings. I think that's a real important thing that you're doing here. Thank you for having clear procedures, timelines, et cetera. But at your June meeting, which I attended, several community members expressed their concerns about 2 Forest View books, library books, that they believed should be removed and otherwise banned, I think, from the library. The 2 books in question at that time were Kite Runner and What Girls Are Made Of, but apparently there are more that they have concerns about. I'm here to share a different opinion. I have learned in the past month that the district has a policy, already has a policy. Keep going. Already has a policy that exists within the Brainerd Public Schools that requires books with more mature content to be located in the mature readers section of the library, limited to access in students in grades 7 or 8, and most importantly, allowed only for checkout upon the receipt of a written parent permission. I believe that this BPS policy already provides a smart, reasonable, and functional middle ground compromise to this topic. I've also read your BPS policy 606, which is in your board packet for tonight. I believe it provides clear procedures and policy on the topics for guiding your staff that addresses the topics of resource selection and evaluation. And really, in my short period of time coming to and from this district, since my family has lived here, I feel very confident that the people you have employed in this district are honorable and knowledgeable. They care about their students, they care about education, and they care about your community. They are competent professionals who are up to the task of making good decisions based on the needs of your kids. I have one last point, though. At last month's meeting, I believe policy 414, titled Mandated Reporting of Child Neglect or Physical or Sexual Abuse, was cited as a means to ban books. The policy makes clear that statutory requirements of school personnel to report suspected child neglect or physical or sexual abuse. This is an expectation of any and all people, of course, who work with students. As a person who has worked in the fields of both public health and education, I believe that this is an extremely important policy for protection, for student protection issues. However, I believe the policy is diminished when it is used as a means to ban the use of the school resources that we may disagree with. Thank you.
And our last public comment for this evening, Susanna Lamuska.
Hello, I'm Susanna Lamuska. I'm a concerned parent of 2 young girls in our district, a community member, and an advocate. I just have a few thoughts I'd like to share with you guys tonight. I don't believe it's a hard decision whether our district should have this kind of graphic sexual content available to our young kids because it has nothing to do with educating our kids. I'm a firm believer and advocate of age appropriateness. I believe in bringing solutions. Our public library offers the book What Girls Are Made Of, and many of these other books for free in digital and audio format. Removing books like this from the middle school access does not ban them. It just puts more control in the hands of parents to be involved in what their kids are reading. Parent involvement is key, especially with these topics. I would like to remind everyone what middle school was like a long time ago. Even without checking out a book, kids still read it. And when they find something of this sort, they tell others, go check out this book, page 92 for an example. And now with social media at everyone's fingertips, it makes it that much easier for kids to view it. I do understand our society is getting to the point where we cannot say no to anyone about anything. But in this situation, is this the direction we want our district heading? The graphic scenes written in these books are not a part of any education. And education is key here. I do not believe context means anything when talking about child graphic sexual content. Please don't help take away even more innocence from our kids. I am all for sex education, but education is the key word here. Not books or scenes where a 10, 12, 13-year-old can take a rape scene, for example, and do with whatever they want, letting their imagination go wild, and also maybe thinking it's okay to be raped, violated, or taken advantage of because there is not any education associated with it. I don't believe it's a coincidence that human and sex trafficking is quickly surpassing the drug cartel to become the #1 moneymaker in the world. Our kids being sold into sex slavery. Please think on that for a moment. Where does this end? If it comes down to policy or rewriting policy, I would ask that you take a look into our book fair volunteers and make sure they are all upholding the policies in place so there's not just one following policy while the other 8 are looking the other way and allowing the kids to check out whatever books they want. This has happened. There is a big difference between a book ban and eliminating access to this material. These books haven't been properly reviewed or they would have never been in our libraries. I appreciate each and every one of you here. I know your heart is to do your very best for our kids, families, and community. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Susanna. And thank you to all 20 of you that spoke, and to the rest of you. I appreciate there's a large number of people here with some pretty strong opinions, and I appreciate the decorum and the adherence to policy. That said, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the last board meeting, the June 12th board meeting.
Motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Brecken. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on to the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve. I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken. As noted, two amendments to this particular section of the agenda. Policies 524, Internet Acceptable Use and Safety Policy, Policy 601, School District Curriculum and Instruction Goals, have been removed. We will review those at a later date.
Mr. Chair?
Director Ward.
I'd like to also pull staff changes, leaves, and gifts and grants to discuss individually.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes. Well,
Can we
yes.
have a motion within a motion? We're getting three
An
layers
amendment
deep
to
into
the
Robert's
motion?
rules here. I've had a rough night.
You make an
On a
amendment to
previous
the
board
motion.
that I was on, you know, when the consent item got pulled, the elected official got an opportunity to tell why they pulled it. And then the rest of the agenda, the consent agenda was voted on, and then those individual items were voted on individually. I'm assuming that is the same process under Robert's rules is here.
Fair enough. Then we'll proceed forward, Director Ward, with the admonishment that there are certain topics we're not able to discuss as it relates to the departure of staff.
Correct.
Fair enough?
Correct.
Proceed.
Did you want to go to the consent first, or do you want me to do first?
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, okay. So on the leave staff changes and leaves, I just want to acknowledge, while all of our employees are valuable and appreciated and respected and do great work for our children, we got two people that are leaving, and we also respect and appreciate all those that serve our district and choose to leave for whatever reason. But I want to acknowledge tonight Beth Cooper and Candace Burkhart for who are leaving our district, and in my opinion have a significant loss for our children and our families and our staff and our community. And I want to thank Candace and Beth for what they have done for our district and our children, and they will surely be missed, and we wish them the best as they go forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Ward.
On the gift and grant, this is an opportunity every month that we as board members can see the people that give gifts and grants to our community, and then Superintendent Hahn and the administration send thank you letters to all of them. But I did want to call out one tonight because, I mean, first of all, we appreciate all grants, donations, monies that are given to our district for our children. There's a significant one tonight, and I wanted to call it out individually. And that's the Nisswa Lions gave $9,029 to Nisswa Elementary School. Now, the rest of these folks, Strobel's, the McDonough's, the MSAA, Essentia Health, Riverside PTO, and Brainerd JCs also gave. But when somebody gives over $9,000, I think that deserves a little individual recognition as well. So I just wanted to point that out to our district, community, and the board.
That's great. Thank you, Director Ward. Any further discussion on anything on the consent calendar? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to presentational, Julie Kritz from Partner Ed with the Strategic Planning Priorities presentation. Hey, Julie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Oh, okay. And it's not in presentation mode. Hang on just one second. There we go. Okay. I'll just scroll. Okay. All right. I have my phone here because I'm watching my time, so I'm not reading my text messages, just so you're all aware.
Just for Kicks is not using this room tonight, so
okay.
Do your worst.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity for Partner Ed to serve the Brainerd community. We've been extremely impressed with the dedication of the staff, the students, the community members, the board members. I mean, you've had significant involvement in this process, and so I hope that what we're bringing forward tonight as recommendations for you and the background information that we're sharing with you provides some context as we continue to move forward in this process. We had a team of 4 individuals that were working on the Brainerd project, and I'm Julie Kritz. The second person there, Director of Superintendent Relations for Partner Ed, but Denise Pontrelli, Paula O'Loughlin, and Jennifer Pelletier have been working on your project as well. Know that the idea of a new vision for education and a blueprint essentially for the path going forward for school districts is really important to talk about periodically. Because it's really easy to assume that what's happening one year should roll forward to the next year and roll forward to the next year. And every once in a while, it's good to take a pause and say, are we doing the right things? Are we making sure that our students are prepared for their future? And that's essentially what this process has been about. So tonight in this presentation, my goal is to make sure that school board members are informed of what the process included and how that played out for the Brainerd School District, that we review some of the input and the data, the themes that came out of some of the data. I'd like for you to understand the evolution of the strategic priorities and what we're bringing forward as recommendations tonight, and that you consider those recommendations at the end, whether you choose to act on them tonight or delay that to another meeting. We'll see at the end here. We started with the overarching question, how do we ensure an excellent education for our Brainerd students now that prepares them for a successful future? And we spent some time talking about how quickly the world is changing, how rapidly technology is affecting essentially every single industry. And so we know that what was once okay in terms of education is no longer necessarily meeting the needs of students for their future. So that was our overarching question when we got started. Here's the timeline that we followed. We started in March with some listening sessions, and I'll talk a little bit more about each of the processes as we went along, but we had listening sessions. There were surveys. We were on site and virtually doing listening sessions with the community. Then we had on-site meetings with community stakeholders. We had 2 of those evenings. We've met with Heidi and the administrative team. You had a little bit of discussion, I think, at the retreat this last month about priorities. And now we're here tonight to give you an update on where we're at. During the first stakeholder meeting, 61 members of the Brainerd community were invited to be part of this process. So who makes up that 61 of individuals? You had 3 school board members that were part of that, Director Brecken, Dondlinger, and Spear. So 3 board members that were there at every meeting. I believe all 3 of you made every meeting, and Director Boyles, we were there to greet people periodically, which was wonderful. But we also we invited parents from preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school, community members that didn't have children in the school, senior citizens, parents of recent graduates, staff members at all levels. So we were really looking to have a well-rounded group of individuals share their input and thoughts about our process going forward. We started by taking a look at the past with looking at a collective timeline about some of the things that have happened in the Brainerd School District over the course of the last 15 to 20 years. And one of the things that was notable is that I believe it was in the 2008 to 2010 range, there were some significant budget reductions. And as we looked at some of the programs that had been reduced over that period of time, there hasn't been an opportunity to look at adding some of those things back. The budget has continued to be an issue most years. So you've been watching your dollars, and that's been an important thing. But what we heard is that some of the reductions have had a significant impact and continue to be so. So we looked at the past. There was a significant amount of information shared about the state of the district. I'll get to that in a minute. And then we also were talking about mission, vision, and values. So, and the process for the mission, vision, and values piece, we started with input from all the stakeholders that were at the meeting. We came back to with a small subgroup of folks that met in between. I believe there were board members, staff members, and community members as part of that work. And so the defining of your mission, vision, and values is continuing at this point and near completion, but not quite ready to be presented yet. In the state of the district, this was Superintendent Hahn and some of the team members. They shared information about student enrollment, about student achievement, some of the current programming and opportunities that are offered in the district, numbers of participation and so forth, both on the academic and on the co-curricular side. There was information about staffing. The numbers of members that you have, we talked about openings, wages, comparable wages, and so forth, and information about the financial situation, budget, and the Brainerd facilities. So that was all of that led to the idea of helping everyone in the room understand the current state of Brainerd Public Schools. When we got to the second stakeholder meeting, we continued to talk with and share information with that group about the feedback that we had from our listening sessions and from the survey. And I will share that information, the feedback with you here in just a moment. And then we moved to focusing on the future. So with the focus groups, we had staff focus groups, we had an administrative focus group, we had a number of parent and family, community and business partner focus groups, as well as staff surveys. So we have themes that came from that. We met with students as well, and they also shared information through a survey. So here's what we saw, some of the feedback that we saw. The questions that were asked are, what are things that you like about your school district? What are things that you wish about your school district? And what are some things that you wonder? And as we sifted through the data, we grouped that into two sides. In some cases, the I like, most of those, most often they were strengths. The I wishes were areas where there was opportunity for growth in the district or perhaps a challenge. And sometimes the I wonder was simply just a rhetorical question, and other times it pertained to one side or the other, and we tried to make sure that that information was reflected. So this first slide is the themes that we heard from staff. So this is combining both our staff in-person listening sessions and what we saw through their online survey. We saw, and again, I'll just say we're looking for themes, and so there certainly was lots of information, and we were trying to look for common themes to bring forward. In the area of strengths, and we heard this tonight, I think, from lots of people who spoke, we know that we have caring, supportive, and welcoming staff members, and your staff felt that way as well. They felt like there was lots of opportunities for programming in a variety of ways for students. They felt that most staff embrace change and are willing to make adaptations as needed, and that the staff embrace technology. Some of the things on the challenges or the opportunities for growth, I'm not going to read every single line, but I'll highlight a few. I think we heard that consistent behavior policies, practices, and systems was important. That was something that was called out as maybe a higher level of need. And really the background information on that was that some students may be have a consequence one way with one teacher, a different way with another teacher, or perhaps administratively, we don't respond to concerns in the same way. So we did hear about the need for more consistent and well-documented procedures and practices, not only in the area of student behavior, but in some of the other things that we discussed as well. And you'll see that emerge as a priority here a little bit later. There was some discussion about staffing and not having adequate staffing in every department, not because you haven't approved the positions sometimes, but because you're not always able to fill those positions. They end up being vacant, and the pressure that puts on other staff. Some talk about making sure that staff are treated respectfully, both within the school and outside the school, from students, from parents, community members, and actually within, staff member to staff member as well. Trust within and outside the school was an area that they felt could be improved, and improving student achievement outcomes. In the administration, they too were complimentary of the staff, feeling like they were highly skilled, very supportive, they're committed to students and to students' learning. They recognize that the facilities that Brainerd has are second to none, and that those facilities provide great opportunity not only for your students, but also for your community members as they're able to tap into some of those new facilities and programs that might be available as a result. On the challenge side, again, you'll see consistency with systems, procedures, and policy, where we're just we're hearing that we're not consistent, not only, like I said, in behavior, but in other ways as well. Safety, access to buildings, those were just some of the examples. Curriculum it was an area of some inconsistency as well. School safety and security was one of the challenges that was highlighted here. Mental health was another one, and behavior. So you're starting to see some themes that we saw the same with the student group as with or the staff as we did with the administration here. In the area of student themes, they appreciated the diversity of classes and the number of clubs and programs that were available so all students could find a place to belong. They liked the advanced learning opportunities that Brainerd High School offers them. They felt both athletics, music, and arts were strong. And there was a lot of school pride from the students. On the challenge side, they commented on the need for some cultural awareness, additional languages perhaps, and adding some curriculum options. Lots of discussion about career-related opportunities and having more real-life learning opportunities for all kids. We know that there were opportunities for students who are choosing that through their electives, but I believe that the conversation was really about, should that be something that all kids experience, not just those who choose an internship kind of an elective. So there may be a way to do that. Safety improvements for the school district through policies and student expectations, expectations for behavior came up there too. The facility improvements, the kids are impressed with the facility. They were asking for more access, equal access. And I think the example was if you are participating in athletics, you have quite good access to facilities, but if you were not an athlete, that you may not have the same ability to use some of the nice facilities that you have, or if you weren't part of a organized sport. Also that some of the women's sports didn't, or the girls felt they didn't have equal access. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but something to think about. Students were asking for increased voice, that they'd like to be a part of some decision-making, both in for their own program, as well as decisions in the school. And they wanted to make sure that they were prepared for their future and their careers, and they really had questions about that to say, I wonder if what we're doing will prepare us. Community themes. You'll see the very similar strengths with opportunities, quality staff, passion and commitment for student achievement, facilities again, both for athletics and activities, passion and pride. And the community really feels that Brainerd Public Schools have a reputation of excellence. And that's pretty cool to hear that. We heard that multiple times. On the opportunity side, the need to prioritize students and the student needs to make sure that we're challenging them and teaching critical thinking skills so students don't feel like they are not challenged in their classes, that it's, I don't want to say boring, but that, they need to be challenged and have the ability to have greater rigor and critical thinking skills in their class. Balancing in the budget was a big thing, and we had a good discussion about that. Student outcomes, and that really is about the test scores that we've been hearing about. You heard about it a little bit tonight. We certainly heard about that in our sessions, in the community breakout sessions that we had, as well as through the surveys as well. So concerns about how students are performing with reading, with math, with your science, and other curriculum areas. Student emotional well-being is there. Better transition between schools, and what that means is making sure that we have a soft handoff between elementary and middle school. When kids are going to middle school, have we planned for a nice transition? And the same thing for when students leave the middle school and go to the high school. And I know that you have things in place, but it was an area that was recognized by the community here. More civility between students, staff, and the community. Again, you see the consistency piece around student behaviors. Curriculum is there. There was discussion about the middle school experience, and I can share that we've done a lot of strategic planning in many school districts, and the middle school experience comes up in many schools, if not every school. It's an awkward age. I applaud the staff who love to teach middle school, because when you get that right person that really connects with the middle school child, that's exactly what they need. But it's an age that in all of our lives is a difficult one to make your way through. So I'm not surprised to see that, and in no way am I minimizing that. So if that's something that you can figure out how to improve, I would love to continue conversation with you about that. So, and I know that you will address it. So, transparency and communication is on here, and again, trust. So, as we moved into focusing on the future, we watched a provocation around, will our students be ready? And it showed, this video shows the advancement of technology, the robots, the robotic, the automation, the essentially the changing workforce for our kids. We looked at a future-ready framework that talked about more than basic content that kids need to know as they're preparing for their future, a personalized learning framework, and we also looked at the economic forecast. And then we moved into, all right, given all that you know and all that you've heard, what are the priorities for Brainerd and the focus areas that we should be looking at? So we did a mind map activity, and you'll see that there are dots on these slides. So as ideas were generated by people in their tables, we put them up on the chart and worked our way toward prioritizing. So if you look, the top one says accountability, and part of that was parents and caregivers being accountable, that the system needed to be more transparent, and that trust was really a part of that too. So you see from the mind map that there's some additional explanation around that. But the number that you see by accountability is 19. And the number you see right on the left in the middle is 43. And that one was student behaviors. So we had these 4 charts. Everyone was given 4 dots. So they had to choose their top 4 priorities. In no way did that mean that the other things weren't important. It simply meant they could only choose 4. The things, if they said our school district needs to focus on these 4 things, what would they be? At the end of this process, we realized that a couple of table groups didn't know that we had moved. We had 4 charts that we'd spread them out, and they weren't in the same area. So we knew that it was possible that some of the votes, the dots might not have been in the right spot. So we followed up the next day with a survey out asking these same questions with the same priorities and asked folks to give their top 4 votes, their choices. So again, you're going to see accountability, curriculum, connections, those same things. We only had 33 responses of the 61, so about 50% of the people responded, but you can see how the votes in prioritizing 4 areas turned out. And then the school board at your last retreat had some discussion too. So here's how it shakes out when you lay these side by side. The key community stakeholder group, that's the mind map with the dots. So the top 6 items were student behaviors, expanding student opportunities, safety, and finance and budget had the same number of dots, so they're both ranked 3, and mental health supports and accountability was 4. So those are the top 6 that came out of the mind map activity that was in person. The middle column is from the survey that was done online. And again, you see student behaviors as number 1. Number 2 was finance and budget, tied with accountability, and then addressing staffing, systems, policies and procedures, and connections and relationships. And in the last column is some of the discussion that you'd had as a board, identifying that the budget is a significant concern. That literacy in specific, and so I put literacy with curriculum, if that's okay. That could be something that you make a change on at a later time, but right now that's where I grouped it is with curriculum, and then the student behaviors would have been the board's 3rd priority. After looking at the data now from these 3 data sets, your administrative team talked about all those priorities, and they really were trying to connect what are the current strategies we already have in place. I know that Superintendent Hahn, in her first year here, has begun some new initiatives, so there are some things that are underway. We wanted to make sure that they are married with the new initiatives that will be that may come forward through these priorities. So we needed to have some discussion about what are those things that are already underway. Are there some things that can go off the plate? Are there things that need to stay on the plate but have less focus or less time? And then what are those things that need to rise to the surface where you're spending the majority of your energy? And so these are the recommendations that essentially we're bringing forward. The first is to increase academic achievement, and I'll get a little bit more detail for you here in a minute. The second is around ensuring safe school facilities. And this one is more about standardized procedures, practices, and resources, equitable resources. So it's really about the physical plant, how people are getting in and out of the building. Are they checking in at the front door? Are their doors left open? So from the physical safety part, and do we have standardized procedures that everybody understands across the district? The third here is around the financial position of the district, and the 4th is around establishing a learning and working environment where both students and staff feel supported and encouraged to thrive. You saw that the terms accountability, transparency, and community partnerships, those connections were important. And in visiting with Superintendent Hahn, we felt that accountability needs to be a part of every goal rather than making it a goal in itself. That has to be a high priority for everyone. Measuring accountability is hard to do. Measuring a goal is definitely what we need to be doing as we look forward. Being transparent about the goals, the action steps, the progress that we're making, communicating with the public, communicating with parents and staff, that transparency is what will help to build trust as well. And continuing to expand partnerships on the learning side, so getting parents in your community involved in your school can be embedded really into every one of the goals that we talked about. So in this first one, the goals around, so underneath the priority are some potential goals. So these are definitely not solidified. These are just some possible ways to work on student achievement. One is to address the multi-tiered systems of support for academics, for all academics. So that would be your reading, it'll be your literacy, it'll be your science. And what the multi-tiered systems of support means, just for the sake of everyone that may not get to.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said that you want to be transparent.
Yes.
Why don't we say we're going to improve academics? Why don't we say that we're going to get behavior under control? Why is it a multi-tiered system of support? I thought we were going for a strategic plan, not education wording, strategic plan. So the strategic plan in my mind is that here's where we're going. Heidi, her team can figure out how we're going to get there. And if they want to do their multi-tiered systems of support and they can accomplish these goals, then, I mean, I just don't think this is transparent at all. I think this is confusing, educational, wording. From what I see, I wrote the same things down you did, Julie. You get a little, I can't believe you had the little dots up there. I can believe it. But student behavior won by a landslide.
Yeah.
Double. So we've got a multi-tiered system of support for behavior. That doesn't seem like a strategic plan. Or am I just way off base because I'm just a rum-dum?
No, you're not. Absolutely not a rum-dum or way off base.
Well, now, wait a minute.
I got to talk for a while. It's been a long time here.
Yeah, I know. So you're right. Multi-tiered systems of support is not a layman's term. I mean,
No, it's not.
Yeah, it really isn't. So
But
that's
we're
very
being
fair.
transparent for the parents, for the public, for the taxpayers that pay this tremendous deal for this school.
Right.
And this is a really big deal. Like Heidi needed this to get the job. She wants this.
Yes.
So why don't we make this really simple? Is that where we're going to end up? Or is this just part of melding this thing together? Like when we're done, is it going to be simple?
It could be. It could be more simple than it is right now.
It's going to need to be to get my vote. I can tell you that much right now.
Well, to your point, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with these terms. These are the tools in the toolbox, but it's not the building that we're building, right? People got to understand if they're going to contribute to it.
And the reason that we put the term there, but we can figure out a different way to say that. The idea of the multi-tiered thing is the first part is, what does every child get? So let's talk about behavior. In the classroom, what are the expectations for everyone? And then the next tier is kids who are struggling with the rules that go for everyone, that need maybe some additional support. What does the next tier of support look like? And then there's a third tier for kids who need a lot more. So it's that idea of not everything gets an intervention. Sometimes it's about all classroom expectations that affect everybody. The curriculum that affects everyone is the first tier. So when you're looking at addressing achievement, you have to really look at all three. You got to look at the core curriculum that everybody gets, and then you need to look at, and then what are the extra interventions that kids who need more are getting? Do we have enough of those? But sometimes the change needs to happen in the classroom with everybody. It might be a everybody change versus a small pot of kids change. Does that make sense?
It does. I hope you guys are really concerned about this behavior, because behavior and safety are two winners.
Right.
And so I'm worried about teacher safety, administrator safety, children's safety. And from what I understand, things are a little wild these days. And so I hope that becomes, I don't know that it has to be a number one thing, although I think it should be, because it wins with the students, it wins with the staff, it wins with the administrators. So I would hope that would be our number one thing. And when I look at these two, of your top four, it's student behavior, finance, student opportunities, and safety. Well, you put safety and student behavior together, I think you kind of killed two birds with one stone. So I'm kind of hoping we can kind of put all that together.
Yeah, true. We debated about where should the student behavior part of safety go? Should it go in the achievement part, or should it go in the building safety part? And it can go in either place. So to your point, we could certainly move that around. The desire to enhance career pathways for that was part of the real life experiences, that kids need to be out working in the dealership and having a chance to see what some of those things are really like, trying some of those things out, that all kids do, not just a small percentage of kids who are taking an elective that gives them that opportunity. So that was part of we still have to make sure they're prepared for the future. We've been talking about looking at a portrait of a graduate. What that means are, what are the skills or attributes that you want kids to have, that you might want kids to have besides content? Like, it might be things like communication skills. It might be, what are those soft skills, so to speak, that as an employer you would expect kids to have when they come to you. So that process, right now we're kind of slated for that yet this fall, at some point this fall, but we need to manage the capacity of your system, and we'll see what timing works best for you to do that. There was a thought about standardizing the process for decision-making around academics, around co-curriculars, about special programs. I think the example of adding lacrosse is an example of that. When do we add programs? When do we take programs away? Are we looking comprehensively at if we add whatever the activity might be, what are the effects of that? Does it reduce the numbers in other sports? And so that's about creating some processes that you can come back to over and over again, and looking at student participation. Now, again, the goals that are listed under there are things that surfaced, but they don't, if it's too much, it's too much. You can say, nope, some of these have to go away. We're just going to do 3 things. What are those 3 things going to be? The second one is about school safety. So it's about looking at your district safety and crisis plans. It's auditing. What are you currently doing and where are the gaps? Where do we need to shore things up to make sure that the buildings are safer? We need to create a consistent process, protocol, and communicate that to parents, to community members, to everyone. So we're doing what we're saying we're doing, that we follow what's documented and on paper as far as the process to keep people safe. And the communication part of that, I think, is a big part of what we heard, that parents didn't feel like we were communicating enough about things that concerned safety. So that's why that's listed there. Strengthening the financial position of the district. Part of that is about communicating. Part of it is about auditing current practices. We did talk about that too. How many of those things are rolling forward because we've always done them that way? That there would be some efficiencies. We can look at doing some things differently. To find some dollars, to seek some efficiencies, and then creating a multi-year plan. And the operating levy is listed under there because it's hard to say, we feel like we need an operating levy and we're going to do it right now. I mean, that's one of those things you need to plan and communicate and work for a longer period of time. So if the multi-year financial plan ends up with an operating levy, so be it. Maybe you'll solve that in a different way, and the operating levy ends up not being the solution to that. But that's where it would fit if you wanted to have that in there. And the last priority was about the learning and working environment. Improving a sense of belonging and well-being. We did have some staff who said they feel underappreciated. Certain work groups felt underappreciated, even within their buildings. And so we know that everyone works better when you feel like people around you appreciate you. So improving that sense of belonging for staff as well as students. Expanding opportunities for parents and guardians and community members. Some of the people that are in the room that participated in this talked about that. They realize the community, they can be a part of the learning. They don't just have to be a part of a book fair. They can be a part of the learning experiences in classrooms and have meaningful impact. So looking for ways for them to partner is a possibility too. We needed to look at recruitment processes because the staffing concerns are real. Training and development processes for staff. I think bus drivers were one of the examples. I appreciate the lady that spoke tonight that's a bus driver, and we were just hearing that. Are they well enough trained? Do we have enough systems in place to support bus drivers? It's a difficult job. That's just an example. There's other staff as well that we want to make sure are adequately trained. Making sure that we have a supportive and responsive community and that we have mental health supports for students and staff. So those were the 4 priorities that we grouped together, but I'm going to stop talking and ask that you share your thoughts. So I believe some of your committees have talked about this, but looked at potentially these priorities, maybe not.
Well, let me direct this, Superintendent Hahn, and to you, Julie. Just to be clear, the action item for tonight is to approve the 4 macro bullet points, not any of the stuff underneath them.
Correct.
Just identifying these 4 priorities. That's what we're going to vote on at the end of our.
So as you saw, there's lots of competing priorities and lots of interest that came from all the people who weighed in. The goal is to narrow that focus down on the 4 priorities. The goals under those priorities, the outcomes, the measurements, We can't really start on that work till the priorities are identified and approved. So that's what's happening this evening. Or if there's more time, like Julie said, there's lots of different pieces to this. You, the board, have to approve the strategic priorities.
Having been part of this work, I feel like this is a really good way to group some of what we heard throughout all of those sessions and all of the feedback, and make sure that there are multiple ways to approach some of those, for example, behavior, that there are a number of different areas where we would approach that with different approaches and different objectives. So I appreciate where this landed, and I like the priority areas that we landed on. I'm excited to see where we go with the goals. And I think to DJ's point, you know, this is an internal working document right now. It needs to be actionable for the folks that are going to take action on it within our district. We need it to speak the language of multi-tiered systems of support. And at some point, we do need to paraphrase, summarize, to be able to share this in a real way with the community.
Who does the vision statement, the mission statement? We kind of worked on it. I saw some stuff flying around on it. The one was about a paragraph, which I've never seen anything like that before in my career. Who okays that? Is that part of our thing that we do, or is that, how does this work?
You will need to approve that. So
Who's working on it? Who's on the committee to work on it?
We've had a smaller committee that came forward, and we've had feedback from different individuals. We had our admin team get together in June, on June 20th, to kind of go through that. So that's where it's at right now, because the other thing is strategic priorities should align. So we want to identify those, but the ultimate decision on what will be the wording or how you want to word the vision, the mission, and the values, beliefs will come before the board.
So are you going to share that with us before we get to a meeting like this, so we can kind of hash it out before?
Yep.
I mean, I can get back to Heidi and say, you know, you got to tighten this up. It's what I think. Kevin can say what he wants. Sarah's like, says what she likes. You know, all of us, Michelle. Don't you think it'd be
Yeah. And I think you have
faster?
that under next steps even, Julie.
Yeah, I did. So the next steps would be to approve the priorities and goals, and that's really the role of the board to do that. To finalize the mission, vision, core values, it starts with the subcommittee that's working on it, but eventually it comes to the board for approval. And then creating the final report. That's the work that Partner Ed will do along with your superintendent, is that we're putting it all together based on the priorities that the board agrees on. We would put it all together into a final report. And the action plan part is the detail, the how to get it done, boots on the ground, so to speak. That takes place, and that would happen with your leadership team. And then the Portrait of a Graduate process is something that you have expressed interest in, and something that we'll want to talk about the timing and what makes sense with that.
Mr. Chair?
Director Heidman.
I didn't leave because I didn't want to hear what you listen or saying. I just needed to
take a break.
Take a break. I had the opportunity to visit with Julie. We had quite an extensive list that you guys had talked about, and we pared it down a little bit. And to Director Donlinger's point, we need to use the KISS formula as far as what I feel with the strategic plan. Keep it so simple. You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you? But the simpler it is, the better to understand. And I think we're going to get there. This has got to be molded and shaped a little bit, but I really like what we're seeing.
Well, the internal document will need to be much more detailed, but ideally there will be a visual, a one-page visual that your community should be able to understand, that would be something that you'll take away with a lot more depth underneath for those who are carrying it out.
Yeah, I'll just, for you, Heidi, at least from my standpoint, the mission statement, I don't know who's been working on it or massaging it or whatnot, but as far as I'm concerned, everybody in the community needs to know what the mission statement is. And when they walk into any of our schools, if they ask any administration or staff, what is your mission statement? If anybody looks at them like a deer in headlights, we haven't accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. So to me, it just needs to be really simple and bold. So we can't afford to nibble around the edges. We need to get bold in some of this stuff too, so. I think we'll get there. This board, I think, working with Heidi, I think we're going to have a pretty doggone good strategic plan when it's all said and done.
So do you think that anything will be measurable?
At all?
Right now, I mean, and we had this conversation.
Well, it's easy to say that we're gonna increase academic achievement. So what is that?
Well, we got to add goals.
1% better? Is that 10% better? Or is that state average? Or what are we trying to get to? I mean, I just hate goals that aren't really goals. It's like we're going to win some basketball games this year, but are we going to get more rebounds? Or what are we going to do? How are we going to, I mean, we can't get in the weeds on all that stuff, but will there be like, this is success, like Heidi's got a 3-year goal, and wow, she knocked it out of the park. She did it too. And it's not just Heidi, I understand. It's all administration and teachers, and it's a team thing. But I mean, is any of it measurable, or is it just a feel-good document that we can say that we're working towards?
It has to be measurable because that's the only way we have accountability built into it. That's the only way we have accountability as a board for the work to be done. So that has to come with it. But we have to figure out what the goals are first. So that's the work to be done.
Well, I like that. Makes you feel much better.
And I think you want to talk about what is, to your point, what is the measure of success with student achievement? Is it only MCAs? Is it ACTs? What is it going to be? What will be the things that you're going to look at? Are there other things you want to look at that are maybe perhaps more well-rounded than a test score? But that's part of the discussion that you'll want to have here and that you build toward.
Well, good.
I'll make a motion to approve the strategic planning identified priorities with work yet to be done.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Ward to approve the strategic planning identified priorities as presented eloquently by Julie Kritz. Thank you. Any further discussion or questions for Julie or for administration?
What's, Mr. Chair, do we have a timeline? Do we have a timeline of the feedback, of action and things as such or whatever?
I think over the course of the next month, and I'm looking at Superintendent Hahn to clarify this, but we'd like to have the action plan, the measurable goals and action plan done within the next month or so. Is that
I would say
right?
probably closer to the end of August.
End of August.
Just knowing when the key players are going to be doing some of the work. July is prime time where most people try to take a little bit of a break. So if they have the right people at the table to continue that work, I'm going to guess it'll be closer to the end of August. I'd also like to suggest that when you go into your board retreat, that finalization of the mission, vision, values, I think that would be significant work for the board to discuss and do on a retreat. And then we have we've had a lot of input, which when you say keep it simple, make it bold, that's much more complicated than it seems, which is why it's taking time. But I've appreciated there's many people in this room who've been part of that, who've given feedback. So I think it'll be important for the board to put the final touch on and say this is what we're doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any further discussion?
Director Boyles, I just need to kind of piggyback on what DJ is saying too. I mean, this is really for me, who has been in education for a long time, this is encompassing everything. It's not clear and concise. And so I still don't really, I mean, the priorities I'm really good with, but how we're going to get there, I really feel like we need more work to do in those departments.
I would say everybody agrees, I would say. I mean, for me, what I was looking for tonight was the architectural rendering of what the house is going to look like. I don't need the blueprints yet.
Yep, okay.
Right.
The blueprint's coming. And I think that's what Ms. Kritz did for us, is she did all the listing and all the synthesizing to say, under these priorities, here's lots of options that were discussed. Now, as a board and as a leadership team, if we say, we're going to do these two because they're the most important, that's the work that's coming. And you have to remember, too, there's going to be year 1, year 2, year 3, and we'll move forward that way.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Julie.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
I make a motion, we take a 5-minute break.
Oh, now you do it.
Well, I can't sneak out. I'm next to the boss.
We need to make an
I'm thinking on the
announcement.
end of the row.
Do you want to make the announcement about
Yeah, a couple
restrooms,
things.
though?
So we will take a 7-minute recess because of the number of people we have. Men's rooms, because of the Just for Kicks event, are
Yeah.
We are back live, so we are reconvened. So we are moving on to the next agenda item, which is the presentation on the update for the 10-year long-term facilities and maintenance plan. Marcy Lord, Reed Teesey.
So for those board members that are new, we currently have, or every year the board has to approve a 10-year long-term facility maintenance plan. This has been presented at the Finance Committee. The first document is the revenues. So we put in fiscal year 25, I put in the adjusted APUs, or the student count essentially for fiscal year 25, which then calculates what our revenue will be for that year and going forward. If you look at the very bottom of that, there's 3 pages. Fiscal year 25, we're projected to have around $800,000 in revenue. And then this document is reviewed by Ellers, who's our financial advisor. And then we have to look at the expense side. So on the expense side, there's another form in there that summarizes a projection put together by Buildings and Grounds on what our expenses are anticipated to be in several different areas, health and safety, deferred maintenance. And then we also put in what the projection is related to Blueprint 181 from ICS, their projections. So all of that is combined into this one document. The board approves, and then we send it off to the state. It has to be approved by the end of July. So you can see in the expenses, we are projected to go deficit in about fiscal year 28. Obviously, we'll have to reprioritize and look at projects and reassess and work with what we have. But this is what we have based on anticipated expenses going forward. Any questions on that? I know that was very quick.
Where are you showing us going in the black, Mars?
So if you look at the expense summary on the total ending fiscal year fund balance 01467, fiscal year 28, we go negative 444,522.
That's, wait, what's that?
Are you on the revenue or the expense document?
Oh, maybe I'm on the revenue. I'm that kind of a guy. I'm always trying to fix the revenue. Got it. Yep.
So this is based on student count. So as student count, if it goes down, our revenue goes down. It's also based on the average building age. So once we did all our Blueprint 181 projects, that is going to bring that age down a little bit. It was around 46. You can see in here we're at like 38. So it was a part of the plan, though. I don't want you guys to think that that wasn't.
Right, but the building age calculation, as I understood it, coming in after a lot of the Blueprint 181 programming work on the front end of the levy, even the improvements that we made to district buildings, and Marcy, correct me if I say something wrong here, but the age calculation that you see on that spreadsheet, we're still getting maximum funding. So the age of our buildings, the consolidated age of our buildings, all the renovations of all the different additions and all the original ages and all that stuff, it still keeps us at the maximum funding amount. It's just that to do a lot of Blueprint 181 as well, they did take LTFM bonds out, which does lower how much money we get back from a state level as well, because we're paying that money off.
I'll make a motion to approve the 10-year updated LTFM as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Ward to approve the 10-year updated long-term plan as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Marcy.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, Mr. Murtha with handbooks.
Everybody's favorite. Okay, what I'm presenting to you tonight is the second final reading of the handbooks for each site school. There have been no changes to text or to major content in any of the ones as presented in the June board meeting. I do believe we changed the picture of one elementary school that was on the cover. And that would be it.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Brecken to approve the handbooks as presented. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Director Heidman.
Okay. 2 points that I have. Did we update the handbooks for the new legislation that came out under, that would have been under policy 515?
No, not at this
Student
time.
directory information.
No, we did not.
Okay, we might want to take a look at that, because that was something that we have got an MSBA newsletter on it, and there's a new policy for directory stuff, Mr. Murtha. So I don't know.
I'm aware of the change, but I think the implementation time doesn't mean it has to be ready for this fall.
Okay.
And I'm not, that would be what I would double check.
Okay. And the second thing I have is, one of the things that I heard a lot from teachers and staff when I was in doing subbing, et cetera, was, we can exercise some control while the kids are in school. Okay? I agree with that. So I would like us to start taking a closer look at some of the things that we can control. And it's in the area of technology information. Looking at the elementary school handbooks. By the way, I read through every one of these suckers except the high school one. Didn't have time. But we make a statement, ISD 181 org accounts restrict access to social media sites and gaming sites as much as can be reasonably maintained. Well, I know when I was working in private industry, there were websites we had no way we could get to. I don't know why we don't put that into place here. I don't know what the cost is going to be. I don't know what's involved. But, if they're using school district issued Chromebooks, social media and gaming sites during the school hours, I'll be honest, I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time with it. And then when you get, let's see here once. This would be at the high school. We don't restrict anything. We don't restrict anything. Just, let them go. Let them do what they want with social media sites and gaming sites. I just have a hard time with it. And the only way anyone would have known about this stuff is if you'd have read it. I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I just like to do some reading once in a while. I get kind of bored. And I'm just throwing that out, Director Murtha. I think, and I know teachers don't want to have battles with kids, but I just think, golly, it's our Chromebooks, it's our technology. Can't we restrict some of it somehow, some way? That's all.
I think it's a fair question. I'd have to defer the technical aspects of restriction to the IT department.
Correct.
It is a philosophical debate within the business about what should be open and what should be tight. Mm-hmm. In terms of so it's the same conversation that we're having on other resources as well.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to, I don't want to, we're not going to get into a long
I'd like to.
But I think it's important that we look at.
I think it's a great point, RJ, that you're making. What is the benefits to letting them, like just at the high school, what's the benefits of it to leave it wide open? Because I know when I got a tour of the school from Director TC over there, we went and checked out one of the classrooms, and we were behind the kids, and it was like those big desks in there. And I don't know, you probably didn't even notice, Reed, but I did. It was like 75% of them are playing games. And I don't know, I mean, the teacher was up there talking, so I was like, I mean, that's what I would have done too, by the way. I mean, I'm not saying those kids aren't normal, but I would do the same thing. I'd be checking my football scores, do my fantasy football lineup, baseball, you know, whatever there was to do. Is there a benefit to the kids? Because I mean, that's kind of what we're here for, right?
Director Boyles, can I ask Ryan Schultz, head of IT,
Absolutely, Ryan, come up
to
and join.
explain how we have restricted uses and blocked usage?
We currently do have filters in place. It blocks categories. It's impossible to block every game of every site of everything. I don't know what you specifically saw, and if you want to have a private conversation, we can have that. But
No, it was just a general comment. I mean, I'm looking here and I'm just thinking, golly, you know, they got gaming sites and they can do this and they can do that. I don't know. Do we have more power and control over the Chromebooks?
we can have more power and control, but it comes with a cost of money.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can lock them down to the point where they can't really get anywhere, and we do that in some situations. We have sandboxes, we call them, where if they get in trouble, they get placed into that. They're very restricted. They can access Mr. Murtha's curriculum, and that's about all they can access, but it becomes very restricted for teachers at that point, too, because they can no longer access online curriculum as well.
So if a teacher, to answer your question, Director Donalinger, if the teacher's using a game as an instructional tool for practice, okay, that in and of itself might not be a problem. What else is in that corner of the web, that might be the problem. But if you block that, then you're blocking the other. So that's why I would say it's a balance between loose and tight that you're striving for. And you try to do it in a graduated way where you're tighter early, looser at the end. So by the time they're in high school, there isn't much they probably haven't been exposed to, so we tend not to worry about things other than the core categories that you would have seen, like in the video content stuff in Policy 606. Those sorts of categories would be blocked. But other than that, we want them to look at Wikipedia. The teacher may be using that. There might be something in Wikipedia that some people are uncomfortable with, but that's the resource they've chosen to use.
But we can safely say if an inappropriate website is accessed, it's brought to the attention, it's immediately blocked by district media, so nobody has access.
Yes, district media, I do believe, gets a fair number of calls saying that.
So there's a lot of
list of
times when
URLs
students
that
search,
can't
it
be
gets blocked.
accessed, right?
Yeah, we do have that, yeah. It's ever expanding.
So then, Director Hyman, it comes down to identifying specific things, because what happens is that you're always trying to build a better mousetrap, because these new sites pop up, right?
No,
I think we're a little sensitive tonight because of the meeting that's coming up, but I'm not concerned about the sensitive stuff. I figured you guys had that blocked. I'm more concerned about, I don't know, Snapchat, right? Facebook. Ryan, your hair looks like hell. Why'd you wear that shirt? You look terrible. All this mental health things we keep hearing about. I went to school. There's a lot of fun that goes on there, and there's a lot of BS. I mean, I remember we used to pass notes. You know, it's like, hey, get that over to Randy, you know, I'd be flipping down the deal and the teacher wasn't looking. Well, now if I could just sit here and type this stuff to you, it just seemed to me like I may not even be paying attention to what's going on, because I got a full conversation going on with my buddy who's over in a totally different building in a different class, because I could do that, right? That's the part that I thought you were talking about, Randy. I wasn't thinking about the rest of it, but I'm sure it's another issue. I don't know.
Well, I guess I'd argue too that, I mean, you could go deep down this restrictive path, right? But in the end, you'd win the battle but lose the war, because every kid's got a phone. So if you're going to look at it from that perspective.
we haven't talked about cell phone
Right,
policy.
so I mean, and that's not for tonight necessarily,
No,
right?
it's not.
That's, I think, something that's on several of the board members' minds, and I'm sure on the administration's mind. But I mean, you know, the idea that, okay, so you restrict Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok on the Chromebook, they can't get to it, but they can sure get to it on their phones.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up the subject, and I knew other people would have comments and thoughts, and, you know, I'm not a know-all when it comes to IT, you tell me that. I mean, I know how to turn them off, and if I have a problem the first time.
Your VCR is still flashing zeros, isn't
no,
it?
when I call someone for IT support, they ask me, are you plugged in? That's the first thing they ask me. That's how much I know about IT. I just wanted to bring up the subject for discussion. That's really all. And other comments were made, and you know, it's they're in school. Can we control some of their activity? Because we're here to, we're here to educate. It's not playtime,
Gotcha.
so.
Director Ward. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Murtha, I just wanted to know, one of the things that we continue to hear in the strategic plan from community members is consistency of behavioral policies throughout the district, no matter, you know, from elementary to elementary school, to Forest View, to high school. So are the handbooks consistent with each other, within each other, on discipline policies and behavior policies and, you know, all of the criteria that we need to have to run a district? So the child at Baxter moves to Harrison, and is that going to be consistent within the handbook?
It's more consistent now than it was 5 years ago. We still have some differences in vocabulary, particularly corrective vocabulary or goal vocabulary that different sites use. Some of it's tied to the social emotional work that they do, whether some sites are doing responsive classrooms, some sites are doing zones of regulation. So the expectations are common, but the vocabularies they're using, they are not yet common. That's part of the work that we're doing with the MTSS team at this time, is trying to standardize that vocabulary for behavior. Attendance was the first thing that was worked on. Dr. Burkhart and her team did attendance work on clarifying what are the acceptable tones of language for recording excused and unexcused absences. All right, the next one they have to do is behavior, and the principals want to work on it.
Well, thank you for that. And I understand each individual school also has unique characteristics and unique students, and maybe do some unique differences within their own building. But I just wanted to make sure that we're getting to the point that we have, you know, especially behavioral consequences or academic or attendance consistency throughout the district. And as you said, we're working towards that. We're not there yet, but you're working towards it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Murtha, before you go to sit down, I'll give you this sheet. This is the newsletter for the.
I've got it.
Okay, you got it. Okay, good.
Any further discussion or questions for Director Murtha? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the handbooks as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next up is the first reading of MSBA Policy 516 on student medication. We should have a policy on board medication.
Yeah, that should be handed out for nothing.
Sorry, I did not come with that today. All right, so as part of our 3-year cycle of reviewing all of our policies, student medication was up for review. And since, as you'll see later on the agenda, we're talking about overdose medication, I wanted to make sure that we were checking this policy while we were doing that overdose medication policy. So there's really minimal changes to this. It's just some updated statutes that are referenced within the student medication policy. So open for any questions you may have about it.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Donnellinger, second by Director Heidman to approve the 516 student medication. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Director Ward.
Is the Narcan, is that in there?
So Narcan is in a separate policy that's going to be later on the agenda, 516.5. So it's going to sit next to 516 around medication, but it is separate.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, the approval of the second reading of MSBA policies 427, workload limits for certain special ed teachers, and 503, student attendance.
I know you brought these last time. Would you like me to speak to these, or?
You can't. I've received no feedback since first reading.
I haven't either.
So they're exactly as we saw them the first time.
They are.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
What are we approving, the workload limits,
Right.
or both of them?
Both of them.
Both of them.
So we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Ward to approve policies 427, 503, second reading as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify.
Director Bowles,
No,
I
go ahead.
have one,
Yep.
I was just trying to get to it here.
Take your time.
So This is with regard to student absences. So I see we took out the following reasons shall be sufficient to constitute excused absences. We took some things out, but then did we put them into that last point? 12, so we just kind of consolidated, is that what we were doing?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, for example, physical emergency or family emergency, that is now under that guardian request category. So that would still be a valid reason for an excused absence, and we just consolidated that into guardian request. We tried to, there were disparate attendance codes at every site. So for example, the high school had 50 codes, such as like hunting and fishing and things like that. So we just tried to make that a little more streamlined into guardian request, along with some of those other things you see that were struck but now moved. They're still all excused absences per statute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Need a
Further discussion, questions?
I spotted that last time.
Hearing none, those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I just had to clarify
Yeah,
that.
let's see it.
All right, so
Like
now
Paul
we'll,
Harvey, page 3.
We're getting there.
so now we'll come to that overdose medication policy. Let me find it in my stack here. So this is a brand new school board policy in Minnesota. So this was recently passed in the Minnesota legislature and is a required, it's required for districts to stock Narcan in all of our school buildings. We need to have 2 doses. Fortunately, the district had actually already been meeting with a group of community stakeholders about this very issue. So we have had a group of Jessica Schwartz from Essentia Health, who's in the room, who was very helpful in putting this together, Dr. Andrew Bader, folks from Buildings and Grounds, so Jeff Flayton, principals, Jessica Hopajoki and Amy Jordan, our district nurse, Courtney Hogstad, and then Officer Drew from Brainerd High School. So we've been meeting actually to talk about this and review this and have come up with a process that will fit with this policy. So this is our first reading since it's a new policy for us.
All right, I will entertain a motion to approve policy as presented.
I make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Brecken with a second by Director Heidman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Candace.
Thank you.
Next up, discussion item, Policy 606, textbooks and instructional materials.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the policy number 606 as it stands today.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Spear to approve Policy 606 as written, seconded by Director Brecken. I imagine there will be some discussion.
Yes, there will.
Director Heidman.
I guess I'll kick it off. A lot of discussion. It was good comments made by the public regarding library books. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Policy 606 is absolutely miserable in talking about library books. It talks about curriculum materials, and if you look, and I challenge anyone in the room today, if you look at 606, I don't see any place where it talks about library books. Now, I know I'm kind of narrow-minded sometimes, but I'm even trying to see where it says anything about a library book. And there's nothing in 606 that talks about library books.
Look at D, excuse me.
Where's D?
D under selection of resources. It explains what resources means and it.
Michelle, I'm sorry, Director.
Yeah.
What was that again?
If you look under Part 1, Selection of Resources, item D, it clarifies what resources means and includes all resources within the district, including textbooks and library books.
Okay, I'll give you a little bit on that.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I mean, I'm reading it I don't see library books as a phrase, or as a term.
I don't see it where it says
I see every
library.
conceivable way we could deliver something. So is it maybe your point that maybe just something that calls out library books as drawing them under this umbrella by naming them by name?
Oh, no. My personal belief is 606 needs to be, if you look at the MSBA policy, and they have a policy on 606, it's 2 pages long. This monstrosity that came out in 1980, 1980 is when it was adopted.
But it was.
This was adopted in 1980. It's 13.
Revised in 14.
15 pages long.
Well, content's 9 pages, but your point's taken.
Yeah, well, okay.
The rest are permission forms and stuff.
Correct. And there's very little in there about library books at all. And if you really want to get into the weeds of discussion, the only thing that we have in here that talks about materials, we have the movie rating system. Okay? Well, does that rate books too? Library books? You want to go there? Want to have that conversation?
I don't think it does.
We certainly can, because some of the books that were found in Forest View probably wouldn't meet muster here if we were using this rating system. They shouldn't have even been in there. So I mean, I want to state a policy, because that's what we want to do tonight, correct? We want to talk about the policy. And everyone's saying that we have policy. We have a policy that tells us about library books. Well, in my opinion, we don't. We don't have anything that talks much about library books. And if I was to, if I was king for a day, I'd send it back to staff and have staff maybe take a look at maybe rewriting some stuff and doing some stuff and adding some stuff about library books and bring it back to us, and, well, we can talk about it. But as this sits right now, I'm a no vote.
Mr. Chair.
Director Spear.
Randy, I can, or Director Heidman.
Let's just get rid of that director stuff.
I can see your point that this doesn't directly refer to library books as policy. It says any materials or events with instructional content or function that is available or unavailable for formal or informal teacher learning purposes. So I would say this is an informal teacher learning purpose. All of the resources that we have available in the school district should be evaluated with the same reevaluation process, the same access. We should be taking the same stringent look at all of them. And I believe that we're doing that, and I think it's enabled through this policy, and I think this policy is airtight in doing that. And I want to go one step further to say, I'm going to steal words that I heard tonight, that I am embarrassed and appalled. I love this school district. I love this community, that people would blatantly disregard this policy, and then we sit and listen to people ask for consistent, well-documented processes that aren't being followed. And I'm irritated by that.
Okay, let me ask a question. How many books do you think have gone through this process and have been pulled out of the libraries. How many? How many books have we, library books have we done, Director Spear?
I don't know that.
Okay.
And what I like about that question, though, is there's a way to make that happen. And the other thing that I find really insulting as a former language arts teacher is that we have professionals that have dedicated their life to looking through these materials, to making sure there's content. They know the difference between smut and pornography and actual learning and literary materials.
We've got some smart.
And I would say, if that exists in the library, there are teachers bringing it forward, there are students bringing it forward, parents should bring that forward. It should not be in our library if it isn't of value. But I'm going to tell you right now, and I've used this example, that if I was going to Mount Everest, I wouldn't show up at Mount Everest and climb it without doing some research, without looking at somebody else's experiences. And we're asking our teenagers to go into life without any of these experiences to draw on. How are they going to manage through relationships, through being in, put in situations that for the first time, now they are experiencing it and have never read about it? I trust our professionals in education that what we have in the building makes sense for our students. And I'm going to say I have an 8th grader, and I want to decide what my 8th grader reads, and I think we're in violent agreement that you should decide what your 8th grader reads, and I think that there needs to be room for that in the policy, and I think there is. And I think that teachers see 120 8th graders every day. I only see my one. They have a broader spectrum of understanding of what that population needs, what they're experiencing, and what kind of life events they need to walk through.
We make moral decisions every day in school. So for someone to say, well, we can't be making moral decisions for other people, we can. We do it all the time.
I think we're in violent agreement. I don't want to make moral decisions for anybody.
Do we have a liquor store in the school? Because damn it, we're going to teach kids how to drink. Because when they go out into college, we don't want them getting hammered or understanding how they get hammered. I mean, the point is, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't be raising my voice to a director, because we have got good decorum and we get along. I just do you believe this movie guide then, Director Spear, should be, it's the only thing in the policy, should we be using that to judge library books? And if we do, what rating would you give the Kite Runner? Would you give the Kite Runner a PG, PG-13? Would you give it an R? What would you, I mean, and remember, in the movie ratings, it doesn't take much to get a movie to R-rated. It doesn't take much. A few swear words here, sex scene here, and boom, she's an R-rated movie. And I'm not a book banner. I'm not a banner of books. I'm a school book banner maybe, but I'm not a banner of books, because that means the book was never published and no one can read it. And I think that's where we conflate, that's where we get into some of these issues. So I apologize if I got a little intense.
No, you're definitely entitled to that. And to refer to the movies, I think that's a completely different genre than books and access to it. And I like that we actually have access to a rating system like this that's really cut and dry that folks can use.
But how do we rate books then? In the policy, because I want to talk policy. How do we rate books in the policy?
I don't think we need to rate books in the policy. I think we've got professionals in the buildings that know child development. They know the leveling of the books and what the spectrum of interests are for the kids that are those ages, and make that available. I think we have a procedure for marking off those mature books within the library for.
But what's a mature book? What's a mature book?
I think you can evaluate that through what's in the actual content of the book. And we've got professionals in the building that can evaluate that. We've got systems and library systems and rating systems that can help us with that.
Then how did some of these books get in our libraries? If we got professional people, and I'm not downgrading our staff, how did these books get in our libraries then?
I think we've taken pieces of books and not read full books, and some of those have, I would argue, literary themes that need to be acknowledged and examined. There are kids in our schools that need access to those, that are having those experiences and need to see those experiences for themselves through books. I would argue that if there is a book out there, bring it and have it reevaluated. If it's smut or pornography, we don't want it in the school. And I think we have professionals that can help grade level what those books are.
Well,
they see those kids every day. They know their reading levels, they know their interests, they know what they're mature enough to handle. These folks have dedicated their life to understanding that. And I'm not gonna come to somebody else's job and stand behind them and say, you suck at this, you don't know what you're doing, let me do it. And I, heck, don't want you to do that for my kid.
Well, and you can go get those books for your child. I want to go back to what Mr. Bruce Smith, who taught in the school district. I think that's where kids learn about sex and some of the problems that come around with it. I mean, with all the addiction and the mental health, I mean, I made this comment at another board meeting. We as parents sometimes, we're our children's worst enemies sometimes, it seems like. You know, sometimes they'd be a lot better off, I think, sometimes if we just let them be kids. Let them be kids. I mean, I see the kids running around in Forest Field, they're having fun and they're laughing and they're you know, let's just treat them like kids and they don't need to read this stuff. And I'm getting off. I'm getting away from policy, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, because I know we want to stick to policy.
Well,
and
we're
I
a
don't
Board of
think
Education, we can explore whatever conversations we need to explore because it bears on the policy. You don't need to apologize for anything.
606 is not a very good, it's not written very well, it's not in my opinion, and like I said, it was 1980 is when it was adopted, and I don't know how, 1980, I can't even remember how old
Well, I
it was.
think my bigger issue is it was last revised in 2011. I can't hear what's going on because
we got a gaggle going on.
It's 2014.
What's going on?
I can't even hear you because we had so many people talking over on the side.
Yeah, so let's again, sorry, I should have gabbled on that. Let's, again, you're here to observe. All of us are here all of us except the 6 of us, plus people we call on, so please recognize and respect the process that we're trying to go through here.
I don't want to hog this discussion, but I would like to see 606, and I'll be quiet and let the other directors speak. I would like to see us add some language where the school board, if presented with some smut, and we're talking smut and we're talking pornography, we as a board can nix it right then and there, or at bare minimum, that book goes into what I would call a penalty box, and we have a further discussion about using some of this stuff in 606, and it comes back to the board. It's going to come back to the board regardless, Director Spear. It's going to come back to us because we're the elected officials. We're the people that either have, depending upon what side of the issue you're on, you're either a good guy or you're a bad guy.
I don't disagree. I think you're probably right, Director Hyman, that it will come back to us. But the thing I like about the policy is there is consistency in how that happens. It goes before a group from the community of parents, of curriculum director and teachers and board members so that there's conversation, expert conversation, community conversation. We're in the room as well, that there's a whole book study. Everybody has to read the book and understand the themes and the merits and the educational value of that book before we bring it forward. Because I don't know that we as a group represent that. We don't represent the teaching professionals, the curriculum professionals. We certainly recommend, can
We represent everybody.
the community. But I think we have to have that conversation first before it ends up at the board.
Well, I just think 606 is lousy, so I'm going to be quiet and let you guys talk. I bogarted enough time.
Go ahead,
Go
Director
ahead if you'd
Donnellinger.
like. Well, here's what I think. I think that nationally, certainly in the state of Minnesota, and certainly in Brainerd, Minnesota, the public schools are losing enrollment. And COVID peeled the cover off the ball. And people saw what their kids are being taught. People are mad about it, and they're running for the doors. And we're down 400 or 500 kids in the last 4 or years. And when I do the math on that, that's $6 or $7 million. And with $6 or $7 million, we can do a lot of great things in this school. And Director Spear, I agree with you, and I know how passionate you are about English and literature. But we make decisions on everything. If we have to close an elementary school because we don't have enough kids, you're going to have to make part of that decision. And we're going to have to decide to cut teachers and staff and administrators and all this stuff if we continue this bleeding. I really feel, with what I'm seeing, I don't know if you know this, but Minneapolis schools are about to go bankrupt. Isani schools are almost underwater. All these schools are having these troubles, right? And it's because of the people are flocking out of public education, right? We need to, I think this is an opportunity for us to put ourselves on the map, to just be progressive. I talked to Michelle today, she taught me a lot. There are kids that need these books, exactly as you say, but they've probably gone and talked to a counselor, and we could probably give them the name of a book that would fit their circumstances instead of just having it available to everyone. I think it's this 606 policy, it just seems like a waste of time to even talk about it to me, is so ridiculous that we've got 14,000 books in the school. So are these people, are the parents supposed to read the 14,000 books? Because I don't want my kids seeing that stuff. It's wonderful that you think your kid should see it, and that's okay. My kid, I had him jumping off cliffs on skis at 10 years old. You probably would think that was crazy for your kids. I didn't think that was crazy for my kids. So my kids are my kids, your kids are your kids. But my point is that how on earth are you going to find this stuff? The kid's not going to come home and tell you. Then if you tell it, we get to go to this committee. What makes them experts? Guys, gotta keep it quiet. As a board member, I feel like this is one of the reasons that we were elected. You were elected. Director Ward was elected. Kevin was, we're all elected, right? We have to make these hard decisions. So to me, it's like, this is our opportunity to say, we've got safe libraries. We've got safe schools. You don't have to worry about your kids being exposed to this. I can't imagine that people are going to go running for the hills because we didn't supply a book with the graphic stuff that we've seen in the last 2 meetings. It is pretty wild stuff. I don't think this was in our school 25 years ago. Heidi told me that, when I was in middle school, the same kind of stuff was in there. We looked around for about whatever we could find in that school at those ages, and I couldn't find anything quite as good. You had to wait till someone stole their uncle's stuff at the old deer camp, and it's like, you should see what I got in my tree fort to read stuff like that. It was pretty crazy. I think it's pretty offensive. I don't think there's any educational value. I think that we're trying to make, that education, especially public education, I think that the great thing about America is that it didn't matter if you had 2 nickels to rub together or if you were the most wealthiest people in the county. Everyone got the same education. And I don't think that's happening right now. We're trying to make schools everything to everybody. I don't want to go off on tangents, but there's some things out there that they want to put, vaccine services are going to be in the school. And obviously mental health is already here. And it's all getting loaded on the school. And so then Superintendent Hahn is supposed to try to manage that. Think about it. If you were superintendent in schools 35 years ago, you didn't have pre-K, right? Now the state mandates pre-K. So look what's happening. We just keep adding these products, and I think you can't be good at everything. We don't ask the punter for the Vikings to be the pitcher on the Twins. We're doing so many things, and why do we want this distraction? I think we could rewrite this policy and come up with a better one and simplify things, and maybe we'd start to see some respect and some confidence back in these public schools. Sartell's got the same problem. I'm sure you saw that stuff. I mean, I don't know if you guys did or not. I wasn't gonna send it out to everybody because you guys will think I'm crazy. But Sartell had the exact same thing happen at their schools. They wrote a new policy. You know, Utah has got policies. All these different states are coming out with policies because this is not just a Brainerd thing. And I hope everyone that's here understands, this isn't just a Brainerd deal. It's not like we have evil people here that are trying to get this in our school. It's just kind of how it is going. And I think it's time to pull back, take a look, and this is our opportunity to maybe make some changes. I don't think we're gonna make them tonight, but I think maybe it's worth digging into and doing some more research and possibly coming up with a better program that would make a lot more people comfortable with what their kids are seeing. I totally agree with a lot of those speakers. I could go back through some of them that, you know, you were a kid once. I think we all were. I mean, John, were you a kid once? Yeah, even John was a kid once. I'm still a big kid. So the deal is that it's just like a few of them said, if I can get it checked out, then guess what? I'm gonna show it to Kevin, and then Kevin's gonna give it to Sarah, and it's just gonna go around the room till I go turn it back in. Probably can't find the book. Sucker's still going around the bus someplace, you know? I mean, it's like, I just think this is really an opportunity, and I'd really hate to see it slide away from us where we didn't at least take a look, maybe research what some other school districts have done, see what's out there. Maybe there's a happy middle ground that keeps Randy happy, me happy, these folks happy, those folks happy, Sarah happy, everybody else happy. And I think it's worth the time, because I think it's a really important issue. I don't know if you've heard, but like Lake Region's got an extra 50 kids this year. They opened up 50. We're down 140. We had the finance meeting. We're down 140 students for next year already. That's $2 million. I think maybe we should get some positive news out there to make people feel confident they can send their kids to Brainerd schools and not have to worry about these sorts of things. They still got to worry about all the other stuff that goes along with going to school and going to middle school, and you know, it's scary stuff. And you put your kid on the bus, so did I. I just think it's an opportunity for us to maybe get some credibility back with part of the community. It's for sure a high percentage. I don't know. Is it 50%? I don't know. Is it 80%? I don't know. Is it 20%? I think it's higher than that. I don't think it's going to hurt us. I just think that stuff's available. I didn't even realize it was available online from the public library for free until tonight. One of the speakers said that, and a lot of it makes it easier. I thought you had to go to the library or be able to afford to buy the book, but it sounds like you can just get access from the public library, and they can just read it online at home or on their phone. So I don't know what the big hardship is to give ourselves something to brag about that the other schools can't brag about. I mean, I don't think Pequot can brag about it. I don't think Crosby can brag about it.
And I would argue, first of all, I don't know who is going to be choosing these resources or who is going to be deciding what resource is okay and what resource isn't. I mean, we do have a policy in place that says that the professionals who have specific training, they're experts in the field, are selecting these resources. So then if we're not going to let them select and we're going to go through all these books, who is going to select? The other thing I would like to say is I disagree. I don't think we would be doing better by starting to limit resources. For me as a parent, that would be a deal breaker. I would not want somebody else deciding for me what my children should or shouldn't read.
Would you be okay if we went with like the state statute on obscenity? I know it doesn't count for schools,
No.
so don't. So the state, what they consider obscene, like if you own a gas station, you can't sell this Vegas, you can't sell that book to a kid. That's, you don't think that's.
But your definition of morality and mine might
I'm just
be
going with
very-
what the state calls
Right.
obscene and pornography. I'm not going with what I think.
But context matters. And some of the books that were referenced tonight, the context matters. The context is, you know, you've got kids who are maybe involved in activity that is dangerous and scary, and they read this resource from the beginning to the end, and they're empowered to make better decisions about themselves and their bodies. So context matters. So we get these little snippets, and it doesn't matter to me because I need to read the whole book.
Well, my question, I don't want to argue with you, but what about movies?
okay.
What about movies? Then how do they rate them rated R? Like Randy said, how do they make them PG-13? How do
There
they
is
make
a
them
rating
PG?
system for books. I mean, when
Where
these
is it?
professionals purchase these books, there's a rating system that comes out that, I mean, they've talked about that, and books are rated mature or for, you know, 4th to 6th grade or whatever. There
Well,
is
there's
a
several.
rating system
There
in
is?
place.
Yeah. I mean, there
I
are
knew there
some
were on
that
these
are,
sites.
some that are resource materials for
Yeah.
professionals inside the schools that, like our Forest View media specialist uses when they look at something, so they kind of know ahead of time when something gets here. But even then, it's not infallible, so something slips through and you don't know until somebody brings it to your attention. That's what this is here for.
I understand that.
So on the other hand, then you have the folks that have been reading. To Sarah's point, anybody that read the entire What Girls Are Made Of book, stand up. From cover to cover. Got a couple, right? Right? All right. Most of the people that read the content got it from a website that ranks those books. Now, it's not a website that I would use, but it's a resource and it's available for people. So, you know, good for them for using it. I'm not trying to belittle anybody that didn't read the book. That wasn't my point at all. I'm not trying to lean into that big time. I'll get to my piece in a minute. But I think, you know, there are resources that are used, but even so, it's a national resource. So what happens is, based on that stuff, things get in, and even, they're even missed at that national level. So I guess where I'm at with the policy is, the minute somebody finds something, anybody in this room can challenge anything in our library. It's that easy. I was on the other side of that process in 2014. I came into a room and I spoke in defense of a book that was trying to be removed. I won't go into all the detail, but the point is, I was part of that process, and it seemed pretty good to me because you had, as public, we could show up, we could speak. There were 2 public meetings. You had school district professionals on a panel. You had a DAC representative who represents the community on the panel, and anybody from the community could come speak. And even then, if you didn't like the outcome, as the person that levied the complaint, it's right here, section C, page 9, appeal to the school board. And then it comes to us. So to your point, Director Heidman, here we are. We're the arbiter. Same as the president can stay in execution. Same as the Supreme Court can overturn an amendment or a piece of legislation or a executive order by the executive branch.
That's why I tried to keep my comments towards the policy. But I think the policy needs to be rewritten.
Fair enough.
Be some things added to it. And to
There's
say
no
that,
book rating
to
in
say
it.
that, and I'm not berating professionals. I don't know who orders books. Who orders books in this? I mean, I've got 2, Kingdom of Ash and Empire of Storms, written by Sarah Maas. Kingdom of Ash, summary of concerns. This book contains violence, mild profanity, explicit sexual activities, and sexual nudity, and it's not rated for minors. Out of a rating scale of 5, it's a 4. The same author. See, and I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm not a librarian, but if I see a pattern of author, I'm going to start questioning, how come we're ordering these books? Who's this Sarah Maas? Well, she's got another one called The Empire of Storms. This book contains explicit sexual activities, sexual nudity, violence, and profanity. Rated 4 out of 5. Pretty bad stuff. Pretty bad stuff. And
Director Heidman, through this policy, you have the ability to bring that forward and have it reevaluated as a resource.
So I have a question.
why is it
How do
being
you
ordered
find
in
it?
the first place? Why are we spending resources on it in the first place?
I haven't personally read it, but it might have literary value. It might have themes and pieces that are relevant to the experiences of teenagers.
They could learn that in Bruce Smith's class.
Director Ward, you haven't been heard from yet.
Thank you. You know, first of all, the public comments tonight and this discussion have all been respectful, in my opinion so far, from opposition and agreement, whatever. It's been respectful and thoughtful. And you know what? We're all living our own values and things that we believe in. no matter who you are or what you believe in. You're living your values and you're speaking your mind. And the military gentleman that got up here fought for those freedoms of all of us to be able to speak our mind. Now, I'm speaking, ma'am. And the fact of the matter is, the elephant in the room is the subjectivity of this discussion. Because somebody says, this is terrible, and somebody else says, no, this is okay. Or, you can't do that to my child, but you can do that to that person's child. It's all subjective, and that's the problem. In my opinion, that's the problem here, is that we fight for freedoms and for allowing us to speak our peace and values and beliefs, but somehow we have a process that if you don't like it, then you follow the process to get it changed. You follow the process to get it changed. You don't make a plan to somehow get it changed by being by putting on a show or whatever side you're on. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. You have to respect. We have to build on respect, on thoughtfulness, on our ability to believe in our values and our systems. And unfortunately, it's subjective. And this is a hot button topic. Whether you want to say it is or not, it is. And a lot of the things that come before boards and elected officials are just that. There's a process. I like the process. I believe in the process. There's a way to do that. Now, to change the process, to change the policy. And somebody tonight talked about age appropriateness. And I believe that's important for us, all of us. But you know what? That's subjective as well. Because my child, this is appropriate for my child, but maybe not for Director Heidemann's child. It's all subjective, folks. And so we need to work together to try to come up with a solution. And if we don't like the policy, then we as the board need to listen to you to try to make a change. And we can't sit and, you guys are all over here and you guys are all over there. You know what? One of the things that irritates me with politics is they do the same dang thing in the federal government and the state government. All the Democrats sit over here, all the Republicans sit over there. What if you went chair by chair and chair by chair, and you actually had to talk to each other, for crying out loud? Wouldn't that be something? And you had to compromise and agree once in a while. Wouldn't that be something? Then we might get things done. So let's get together and try to figure it out, rather than keep battling with each other, for crying out loud. That's my opinion. And Mr. Chair, I stated how I felt about the policy. And if some of us don't like that policy on the board, then we need to listen and then try to adjust it, try to change it, try to make it different. Because there's been a lot of people that have given their life up so that we have that freedom, period. All of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I kind of feel like that's what Randy's asking for. My question is to Director Spear and you, Director Ward, and I guess you too, Michelle, is we make it sound like this is such an easy process. So if I'm a parent, Heidi, can I come in the school then and come to the library and sit down and start reading through these books? So I could just walk in the door whenever I feel like it and just swing on into the library and sit down and check out some books? Or do I have to catch my kid with this book?
No, you have access to district materials.
Or do I have to do a data request?
No, you have access to district materials. You make a request, those materials can be laid out. You can make it to your building principal, you can make it to Director of Teaching and Learning, you can make it to myself.
Well, this is kind of my point. This doesn't seem like a very easy deal. It just seems to me like we could just put some filters in, like R-rated, PG-13, and just kind of.
I don't know. I guess I'm confused. What's easier than 4 different ways that you can ask for access?
Well, we talk about people that have to work that they can't take their kids to the public library, but I guess they do have the time to come in here to
Well,
go through
curriculum materials, most of
14,000
them are
books.
online. We did that 2 years ago to make them
I
accessible
wasn't
to
talking
some
about
elementary
curriculum.
school folks. I know, but I
I'm talking
mean,
about the library.
we can't, I mean, obviously we can't get all the library books online, but again, there are online resources where people can research.
I think that's what they've been doing.
Fair
I haven't
enough.
noticed.
So that's
There's a
fine.
lot of online research
So there we
going
go.
on.
So we've heard from 5 camps. I'll finish up with my thoughts on
All
this a
right,
little bit, right? So the first thing is that for me, there's several layers to this. And the first one to me is, you know, what we've got, in my opinion, going on here is a little bit of a forest for the trees syndrome, where we're so focused on the tip of the iceberg that's above the water that we're forgetting the entire picture of it all. And our job as a board, in my opinion, is forest management. We are a governing body. We are a governing board. And to govern, we have to govern through policy. That's how it works. Now, is the policy perfect? To Director Heidman's, it hasn't been updated since 2011. By my reckoning, that's 14. Where did I miss 14? Oh yeah, for 14, so 9 years. A lot's changed in media. A lot's changed in our culture. A lot's changed. So I'm open to the idea that it could use another look from a fresh set of eyes within the district. Okay, I'm with you. What I don't want to do is, we're in the business of forest management. I don't want to go around looking at individual trees myself.
Me either.
And what offends me as a board member is when not only am I not told about a tree, I have somebody come show me the tree at a board meeting with no advance warning, right? Nobody emailed me about the book, What Girls Are Made Of. Nobody called me about that book. Nobody ever contacted me about that book. Nobody did anything. All of a sudden, somebody shows up and reads to me from that book. That's my first exposure to that book. That's not process, that's drive-by. That's not how we do things as a culture. Plain and simple. So now I have to fight through my bias that builds at that point to try to hear what those folks are saying, because I've already sort of got a problem with that process, right? Now I hear there's 25 more books that we may have a problem with. Okay, challenge the books. Challenge them. It's right here. Our job's to clean this up. Yeah, maybe make it easier. Your job, you don't like it, challenge it. Then it shows up here and we'll do it. I wrote letters to the board when I was a community member. I did the exact same thing. It's a process. So to me, there's layers to it. There's a layer where, again, for lack of a better word, theatrical element of this does not impress me. It doesn't make me want to make a decision any different than I would have in any other way. You know, you can try to embarrass me all you want. My wife will tell you I'm better at doing that than any of you could ever be. So I think I can't even get to what's appropriate and what's not appropriate and what my interpretation is until we finalize the framework and have an intelligent discourse around how we process it. And what is our role in that? And what is your role in that? And what is your role in that? But if all you're trying to do is look good for the cameras, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take it very seriously. That's my take. So with that said, I kind of feel like I might be the swing vote in this little adventure tonight. So let me state this, that I'm open to the concept of sending the team back to look and see if there's some things they can do from 2014 to 2023 to make some refinements to this. But in terms of its basic flow chart on how the process works, I got no problem with it. Challenge the resource. Some of the most involved parents that I've dealt with that are in our school district, and they just happen to be elementary school parents, I met them because we sat across the table strewn with materials that they were challenging and reviewing and looking at. And we were completely on the other side of the table from each other. I'm like, there's no way we're moving all this stuff. And they were like, well, we want to burn it all. And I'm like, and now these people are participating in our strategic planning because we sat down and we talked to each other, to John's point. We sat down, we had a dialogue. We made everything transparent and available to them so they could review everything. And then we had a dialogue about each and every item, and they had the opportunity to challenge, and they had the opportunity to do the process. Sometimes they did the process, sometimes they chose not to do the process. But emailing me 3 books isn't gonna do anything. I'm only one of 6 people anyway. And then one final point is, I don't think we all get the same emails, right?
Let's hope not.
Based on what I've gotten on every paramount issue that's come before this board since in the 2.5 years that I've been doing this, from masks to this to whatever, there's this perception by people that they're in this massive majority, and it happens to both sides of the thing. And the reality is, we're kind of split pretty well down the middle on most of this stuff in this community. So I think as long as you start from that mentality that you're not part of this raging majority on anything, that I've gotten way more emails in the last 3 weeks talking about protecting the resources, not about getting them out. Now that's an informal poll. There's no science to that. Zero, none. So I don't put any stock in it, but what it tells me is there are alternative voices to what people think they're hearing. I mean, if you sit in a room full of seagulls, you're only gonna hear that kind of chirping. That's just how it works. And I do it to myself all the time, and we create our own echo chambers. It happens, I get it. But the reality is this community is way more diverse than we think it is, or some of us think it is. And so to Sarah's point, if we have kids who have a parent group, we have people that will pull their kids out if we start locking up resources. I know that sounds absurd to people that don't believe that way, I get it. But I promise you, it's true. And listen, I grew up, my mother, I went to Pillager, so forgive me.
Hold that against you.
Yeah, so, but my mother, I mean, when we had sex education classes, showed up for the sex education classes and sat in the back. It was a fun day. Why I joined band. So I'm not immune to the idea that we want to protect the kids. Everybody here wants to protect the kids. There isn't a bad heart in this room right now. Not one. Every one of you has the best intentions in your hearts. I get that. Right. It's the execution and the deployment and the definitions, like John said, that's the elephant in the room. It's subjective. Again, a book that's been in curriculum for over 80 years. Some people want it out, some people want it in. I mean, it doesn't matter where we move the line. The argument's going to keep happening. The next time we move the line, it's going to be the next line of resources. Somebody will find something else. So you still have to have a process for it, even if we removed all 25 books that they want removed.
Can we agree that those books would not have been in these schools 25 years ago?
I think the cultural equivalent for the times would have been.
I didn't ask that. I just asked that those books were in there. I'm just wondering why our school is shrinking, and I'm just trying to find reasons. I don't think the teachers have changed. I think they still care about the students. I don't think the students have really changed, and I still think the parents love their kids. So what is the problem?
Well, we fundamentally disagree on this, right?
We've said it's COVID. I mean, I've heard it's COVID. Well, that's over. We're not making people wear masks, so why aren't they coming back? And I'm just concerned about it, and I just don't know where we start and where we stop with the cutting. We got rid of all the parents from K through second. We've been through this. It's like, we got to get some people back in the school. And this seems like a pretty small little thingy-dingy just to look this policy over and see if we can't tighten it up a little bit. Figure out who's ordering the books. Do you know who orders the books? I don't know. You don't, I don't think. Maybe you do. I mean, I just who decides? Like, who's the wizard behind the curtain? Who's the Wizard of Oz? Who gets to pick what's okay and what's not okay? I mean, Sarah's probably right. It's probably professional. I believe it. But no one knows who it is. I'm sure someone knows. I mean, I understand. But the public doesn't know. I don't know. And I just feel like it's worth taking a look at to make sure that we're not making mistakes. Because no matter how smart you are or how talented you are, people make mistakes. And it happens all the time. It happens to doctors, architects. I mean, bridges collapse. I mean, engineers. It doesn't matter what profession you're in. It doesn't hurt to have another set of eyes looking over your shoulder. I don't care if it's me, you, whatever. You're in business. Yep. It's okay. I don't think it's an insult. I just thought maybe that there seems like a lot of horsepower on this deal.
I like the idea that there's 10,000 eyes looking over the shoulder. That's what the policy is there for. It empowers every single citizen of this school district to challenge anything they want to.
Yeah,
I don't know how much easier it can get.
Well, I don't think we have a list of books we want that everyone wants gone. I mean, is there new books we should bring in? I just thought maybe we could look this policy over. Like Randy says, the MSBA's is 2 pages, this thing's 9. Why is it 9? Why is it so complicated? Maybe it was, originally written in 1980. I mean, maybe it's time to take a little peek at it and spend a little time on it and see what we can do. Maybe we can do a little better job. I don't know.
Well, I agree with you. I think it includes a lot of the procedure. So, I mean, we could split it to policy and procedure, split it out so that there's 2 pages of policy and 5 pages of procedure. I think that's fine too. I'd be game for that.
Director Boyles, the original policy 606, which was shared in the board packet, explains that in the policy the process has to be defined. So that's why your policy went from 2 pages, from MSBA's template, to 9 pages that the district identified and processed.
Because MSBA doesn't identify the process, that's district-specific.
They leave that up to the district. And so again, so I've heard that question multiple times. Why 2 pages to this? That's part of the original. If you read the original policy template, it says that you have to put your process out. So the public can be clearly aware of what the district identified process is. Just for clarification.
If that's the case, I do like leaving this in the policy. I think it reinforces our own policy.
You like leaving the procedures in the policy?
If we say it has to be made public and available, I think this is the best way to do it.
Mr. Chair.
Director Ward.
Superintendent Hahn, this sheet that the board has, I mean, that's pieces of 606, correct?
Correct, that was a question. I gotta look, because I don't have that in the specific.
Right.
And this has actually been up, so one of the questions that asked.
I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one of the questions asked was for clarification. That was clarification of how they were ordered. So that's what you have.
Yeah, so, thank you, Superintendent Hahn. So, Mr. Chair and community members and board, this answers a lot of the questions that have been raised tonight. And it's in 606. It's in the board policy. If you've read the board policy, it's in 606 with a lot of the questions that have been asked tonight. I also want to just, and Director Donlinger, you are correct, and we as a board have talked about the decline enrollment, and we talked with Marcy about, we've lost this number of students. Now what are some of our gains? What are some of our gains? And we haven't talked about that tonight yet, but we do know we have some gains. And we do have to, in my opinion, we do have to address the declining enrollment and try to bring students back in or whatever we need to do. But this isn't just, as I think you said, Director Donlinger, this isn't just Brainerd. This is nationwide. This is a thing that's going on nationwide.
And so is this stuff in the libraries.
Well, I wanted to say, it's not just about sex books in the library. Kids aren't leaving districts just because of sex books in the library.
Obviously not.
Okay, there's many factors. We can agree that there's many factors why kids leave districts.
Yep.
And some kids get recruited to leave, for crying out loud. As if we don't know that in the state of Minnesota, we better open our eyes, I guess. But my point is, there's a number of issues that we need to look at in order to retain and retain our students, and make sure that they stay within our district. And when we aren't working together to build our system up, then we're tearing it down. If we are not working together to build our system up, we're tearing it down. And that's one of the reasons our kids are maybe leaving too. And maybe our parents are saying, you know what? I don't like what's going on with all that stuff. So I just wanted to make that point, a couple of those points. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know, I think we need to look in the mirror. I mean, quarterbacks throwing interceptions. Who's going to blame? The line, the coach, the receivers, the this, the that. I think we need to take a close look at what we're doing if you want to stop the bleeding. Just a business guy, just,
I don't disagree.
Like, we got it.
No,
Great companies go down. Look at Sears. Sears had 85% of the market. They have like 1% now.
Well, Sears, Sony, Kodak.
Kodak, they kind of got worked out of a job.
Right, but Sony invented the MP3 player,
Walmart
owned
took them on.
60% of the entire music library in the country, and yet Apple outplayed them. Why? Because they didn't look to the future. Yeah. That's why all those companies failed.
Well, they didn't
Not because they looked at the past.
That's true.
And I think that, you, DJ, see this as a win by removing some of these materials. I see that as a loss.
Well, I've heard it from other people.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Right. So again, subjective. you know, what you think is a win is a loss for.
Well, and we got to keep in mind, again, this is off topic just slightly, but it's germane to what we're trying to get at, which is enrollment nationally in public schools has been declining for well over a decade. It's everywhere. And you want to know the leading group that's currently homeschooling kids accelerating over what they were doing before the pandemic? African Americans, which really isn't an issue for us here in the Brainerd Lakes area, but they're outpacing every other group homeschooling their kids and pulling them out of public education. There's a whole bunch of different reasons for it, and you can pick the one you like the best or, whatever, but, this is not because of books. This is not because of masks. This is a whole bunch of different factors that are playing into it.
But we're not going to be able to fix them all.
To answer your question, the reason they're pulling them out is because they can't read.
Could be safety, could be because they can't read, could be because of this.
Because the curriculum doesn't represent their kids.
Could be because of all different things, But I think we got to start picking away somewhere. We got to start picking some battles. We got just going to be able to be middle of the road, and this thing's just going to fix itself. It's like sooner or later we have to make some decisions. Maybe this isn't the one. Don't die on this one. There'll be plenty more.
And this doesn't even bring up the issue of policy 524.
Yep.
Which can intertwine into 606.
I think the plan there, Director Heidman, was to have that be brought forward as a separate line item like the other policies that we see, so we can ask those questions about that and then there.
Right.
I think given this other document that we were given, and maybe, a nice informational piece for the next board meeting would be to have whoever our subject matter expert is on resource selection come in for a Q&A and presentation for us.
Request made?
That seemed like a good idea? Because I think that way then we can ask questions. I mean, a document, sometimes it's kind of cold and you can't really maneuver your way through those different things. But so I think if we did that, but if I may, sort of bring us back to the question at hand, which is the policy itself.
Well, I think meanwhile, until we've done that and done more research, let's make sure we have a policy in place. I'd like to call the question.
Okay, we have a motion to call the question.
What's call the question?
Call the question to stop talking and vote.
Well, I'd like a roll call vote then. That'd be good.
Do we have a second on the motion to call the question?
Yes.
So we have a second.
You don't have any second on the call question, but.
Okay, so then secondarily, we have a motion to make it a roll call vote.
And the motion is?
To approve.
Roll call vote to approve.
Approve it the way it is.
606, the way it was
The
written.
way it's written right now?
Yep.
Correct. That's- And Director Donnelly has requested a roll call vote, which I don't believe we have to have a motion for. That can just be a board member request. Do you know, Janet?
Yes, it can just be requested.
Too bad John Erickson left. We could get all the info we need.
Pretty sure it's just, you have to request it.
All right, I'm sure we'll hear about it tomorrow, but for now, we're going to go with a roll call vote and call the question based, well, first we have to vote on the motion and the second to call the question. Those in favor,
I still don't
signify by saying
understand.
aye. Call the question means that we
Stop
terminate
talking.
conversation. Yes.
Debate's done. Debate's done.
Debate is done.
Of approving policy 606 as written. That is a standing motion right now.
Yep,
Is that what you're voting on?
yes.
Okay.
Are we voting on the question?
Well, we're voting on the question first. You called the question to vote on the thing because it's a secondary motion. Like I had to do this at
Call
the
the question
delegate
just
assembly.
means that we're
Yeah,
never
you
going to
don't need
vote
to
on
vote
it.
on
That
it.
We have to
the debate's
vote.
done.
Otherwise, we can
Call
talk
the
all night.
question, debate's
Okay,
done, we're voting.
So we don't need to vote on the call the question. We're just going
We
to
don't
vote.
need to.
Well, no, we have to vote. On the call the question, we have to approve it. So those in favor of the motion to call the question signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Now we're back to the original motion, which is to approve and retain 606 for the time being as written today. And Director Donnelly has requested a roll call vote, so we will go with a roll call vote.
DJ Dunlear,
No.
Randy Hayden,
No.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
John Ward,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
4-2.
Okay, motion passes as indicated. All right, we are off to committee meeting updates. Let's start with benefits and personnel. Director Ward. Actually, you're the man.
Well, you came and chaired that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I
Mr.
did.
Chair.
I did show up for that meeting, didn't I?
You came and chaired.
And who are we missing from that one?
Which one?
No, the personnel and benefits one. I'm sorry, John was on this one, so I honestly didn't prepare to talk about it. Heidi, you want to help me out with it?
Sure.
Trying to
We have,
remember
the,
bullet
we have the
points.
minutes posted. A lot of what was discussed was where we're at with current hiring and postings. So that was reviewed. The additional thing that was reviewed, and I'm looking at, I think she's here, I know she bought a new car. There's Director Bennett. Director Bennett reviewed where we were at with negotiations and which group were up for negotiations, just to make the board aware where we're at in the process and the steps taken there. That was pretty much the full extent of our Personnel and Benefits Committee meeting at that time. Director Bennett, is there anything you'd like to add that I may have missed? Thank you. I missed that part.
Yeah, so we talked through some more about the medical leave act and medical leave and all that stuff.
And I believe minutes are posted. I'm looking at Janet Horn. We've posted minutes.
So we continue to analyze the impact of some of the legislative stuff at the Minnesota level on unemployment compensation and medical leave and all of
Family
those
medical
different
leave.
things. So Marcy's tracking that.
We've posted minutes from the Personnel and Benefits Committee. Yes.
Okay, well, let's move on to the finance and legislative then. I believe this one I'll firmly place on John's shoulders.
It is. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We talked about the WESBA nearing completion. Hopefully by October board meeting, we'll, Mr. Teasy, right? But maybe by the October board meeting, we'll be ready to move back in for the board. And prior to that, other folks will be moving in as it gets towards completion here. Then we talked about the fund balance. Marcy had, we as a board have asked questions about the fund balance, and to try to clarify that, what we can use for reserve, unreserved, the food, whatever, community ed, whatever. So Marcy is going to look at changing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Director Lord, but Marcy's going to look at the description of fund balance summary to help identify the different fund balances for board members, okay? So that we know what the reserve fund is and unreserved and et cetera, or whatever. Then we talked about enrollment. We had a healthy discussion on enrollment as well. And just Director Donner, as we talked about, the declining enrollment, what can be done about it. Then we also talked about the gains that will come at a later date with that on that. Then we reviewed long-term facilities maintenance plan, which by the way is LTFM. So when we talk about LTFM, I learned that that's long-term facilities maintenance. I didn't know that until that meeting or whatever. And then there were no updates on the strategic plan for finance and legislative. And then we changed a few finance legislative meetings. We made those changes, Superintendent Hahn, correct?
Correct. We did them to align so they're before a board meeting.
So we went from September 11th to September 6th, correct?
I'd have to I don't have it right in front of me, but I know we moved it in front of the board.
And the reason we were doing that is because we wanted to have finance and legislative meeting prior to the board meeting, okay? That's why we did that. So the September 6th meeting was changed to September 11th, and the December 20th meeting was changed to December 7th. That's the report of the Finance Legislative Committee.
Thank you, Director Ward.
Excuse me?
Meetings for these committee meetings are posted on the district website.
Thank you, Janet.
All right, then we move on to informational. Sarah with a BPSF update.
Yes, so BPSF group did not meet, but I do have a couple of updates to share. We wrapped up our collection of gently used warrior gear, so that's going to be washed and tagged. It'll be available at the Visit Brainerd store. The money raised from that is going to go to the food pantries. Last year, they raised $2,000 with that. They also co-hosted the Retired Teachers Luncheon in partnership with the school district on June 15th. They had about 65 attendees at that. And then also just wanted to extend a huge thank you to district staff who participated in the annual giving campaign, financially supporting the mission of Brainerd Public Schools Foundation. About $28,000 was raised, so truly a generous staff. Thank you.
Great. Michelle, with an Equity Task Force update?
We did not meet in the last month. The last I heard, there may be a presentation before the board in August. I'm not sure, Candace, if that's still planned. Yeah. So anyway, we'll get an update on what the Equity Task Force's recommendations are for the board.
Great, thank you. All right, Marcy with the Business Services Report. And this was another amended agenda item because we changed it or eliminated an attachment. What did we do?
We added one.
We added an attachment. Yes. Marcy, why would I ever think you would eliminate an attachment?
So the financial report is what was in there, and nothing really to note on there, but just wanted to note that there will be no report for June. We wait until we close out the whole book and the books and the audit is done before I present June. So next month you get a month off. The report that was presented at the Finance Committee is the first page, so residents enrolled elsewhere. We've got the last 10 years, and you'll notice the top is a summary. So charters, options elsewhere, tuition, and then I break out the charter and the options elsewhere, because the tuition is just, it's around 30 kids, the highest it is. So under the charter, the orange highlights and below is if it's a greater than 10 ADMs and they have an online school. So this means that they're kids in our district and they're going out. Under the options elsewhere, those are all the public school districts that they're going to. So for example, the first one is Aiken Public School District, there's 18, and that's ADMs. So it's not necessarily student count, it's how many days were they here converted. So if I was a student at Aiken all year, it's a 1.0 ADM. Just want to explain that. And then the report that John asked about was, well, what about the kids that are coming in? So this is information that the Finance Committee didn't see. We ran that today. The non-resident report, so same thing, tuition and options, and then we break out the options. So the yellow again is any school district that has greater than 10 in 21-22. So for example, Pillager School District, we brought in 165 kids that are Pillager's resident districts, but they're coming to Brainerd. So then at the very bottom of that report is non-resident versus resident, meaning the net of the two. So when you look at 21-22, the kids going out and the kids coming in, we net a negative 253. So any questions on
We
that?
had more kids coming in.
No,
than
other way.
The other way around, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
253 in the ditch.
Okay.
That's how you see it in the car business.
Yeah. And there was discussion at the Finance Committee meeting about, what can we do? And that's why they wanted this data presented here as well, just to kind of, if the board wanted to discuss that further. I'm leaving it out, looking at the Finance Committee members. If there's any other questions. And this was something that was started last year. It was the first time that I presented, and we did it at 2 different meetings, and I do think it's a little more clear when we present it all together because there was question of what the net number was. So I'll probably continue that where it's both reports. Yeah.
I know, I've asked this before and I can't even remember the answer. That's how 9:30 hits me. I appreciate the ADM layer reporting because it ties directly to funding. Is it like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in the dark to also get this report like with heads?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Because I think that's the other burning question everybody has is like, if we're looking at us versus Pillager being probably the example, because I have my own friendly rivalry with my former home. We'd like to know what is the net student flow, right? What does that really look like? Because ADM's distorted a little, not a ton, but enough that it would be interesting to look at it. And then even further, if we could break that down, because I think, I mean, I know at some point one gets converted into the other, so it seems odd to me that it's so hard to find the other number, but, what do I know?
Yeah.
All right.
I will get back to you on that one.
Not an earth-shattering need, but it's just kind of one of those, if it's an easy thing to compile, it would be fun to have charts on that kind of stuff when we do a state of the district thing.
Okay.
Any other questions for Marcy? Okay. Thanks, Marcy. Have a good night. Superintendent's report with Dr. Hahn.
Yeah, just the last couple of things. So we have wrapped up 3 weeks of extended school year services in all of our buildings, as well as targeted services and credit recovery. As you walked into this building, there were 800 students that you had the privilege of being around, so the buildings really never sleep. And we're getting ready. We have early childhood programming going on, and then we'll be entering into what we call Jumpstart, which is an opportunity for our students transitioning from middle school into high school. They get an opportunity to get to know staff. They have an opportunity to earn some credit prior to even starting high school. So that'll be coming up as well. I appreciate Director Ward did a call out to some staff. I know Dr. Burkhardt, who's still here, thank you for staying through the whole meeting. Dr. Burkhardt entered into a position that was brand new to the district. This was a position that never existed before, and it was created. It also ebbed and flowed as positions were eliminated, and roles and responsibilities had to be assigned. And Candace did an amazing job, and I'm appreciative for her service, and I wish her well. Beth Cooper, you mentioned as well. We have some very talented staff that are moving on to some leadership roles, which is always sad to see them go on, but I'm very excited for them to have that leadership opportunity. And the other thing I'd like to add is I agree that we all come from differing opinions, but I appreciate that people were respectful this evening. The one thing I do know and love about Brainerd Public Schools is that it takes a lot of courage to come up and speak what you believe and think what you believe, and I think we have a board and leadership that's reflective. So I thank you for that input and feedback and for being able to do that collectively together. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Director Ward.
Thank you. Superintendent Hahn, just two questions and a comment. First of all, the comment. Thank you and the people that walked with you in the 4th of July parade. I was supposed to, but I couldn't. I didn't. But thank you for being out there visibly and giving out the 150-year celebration stuff. So I know that the folks that volunteered to do that, kudos to them because it was a extra assignment. And so thank you for that. I also am wondering if I submitted to you and I think others about a Trust for Public Land grant for playground renovations that are available in the state of Minnesota right now, up to I think $500,000 or something like that.
It's $150,000.
150?
So you know. Sorry to interrupt you, but we have that. But I'll let you finish. Sorry, I interrupted.
So we got it?
No, we haven't. So what we're in the middle of, and that's going to come to you at the August board meeting, one of the things we asked was that we have a full audit of our playground equipment done, specific to ADA. So looking at our accessibility. That study should be wrapping up. We'll have the results to bring back to the 4th of July. I wish that was really fun, which by the way, we need a homecoming committee to start talking about that. But we'll be able to bring that study back to the board because one of the requirements of that grant is having a plan.
For the TPL grant?
Yes.
Okay.
And it involves having to have it led by, by a specific school, by a committee within the school.
Yep.
So we are really waiting on that data. I have one school in particular that I know we have a dad who's ready to lead the whole charge, but we need to have all that data to put into there. So
okay,
thank you for that. That'll be coming to the board in August.
I know Susan Schmidt personally, so that would be good too if we can get some input there. That'd be good.
Okay.
We might stand a pretty good chance of getting some dollars there.
Yeah, I think Director TC's done a lot of work when you look at safe schools. That puts us in the running too. But we need to have that data, and we don't want to do just one. We want to have a plan to.
Yep.
9:30, I'm going to lose my ability to speak. To be able to respond to each playground, because we do have some significant deficits with accessibility.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Hahn? All right, so we have our next we have Policy and Community Relations Committee meeting on July the 19th, and on the 26th, Long Range Planning Committee meeting, and Student Support and Activities. Hey, those are all ones I'm not on again. August 14th is our next regular board meeting, and we have a tentative date for a board retreat, but that's not final yet, right?
Correct.
That's right. All right, so that is the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn, second. So we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Donnelly to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, we are adjourned.